I have got the biggest fucking grin on my face.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and really vampire this one, don't you?
Oh, you have no fucking idea.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Big Cat Aethercast.
That is Leo, aka Roaring Smite, and I am Ray, aka Rei'tan Luclaw. And I just currently got Leo all the way through Shadowbringers base MSQ.
Yes, so we're going to go ahead and do a full run-through of that story, as well as a bunch of the role quests, a snippet of, I would say, the Crafter storyline, and then just some upcoming things in the background, as well as what we're looking forward to.
But first we should talk about what we've been doing in between going through the MSQ.
Well, starting with you, with the Dawn Trail update.
Well, there is the Dawn Trail update that just came out, and oh boy, Crossroads of... I forget what it's called. Something to Eternity?
Crossroads to Eternity, I think.
No, because Crossroads was the last one.
Oh, okay.
But I forgot what... It's Something to Eternity. 7.2 was announced, and I am so interested in what's going on in that.
All I have seen from that is there is a roboticized version of Beatrix from Final Fantasy... Seekers of Eternity.
Seekers of Eternity.
But yes, there's a roboticized version of Beatrix from Final Fantasy IX, and people are acting the inappropriate amount when it comes to that.
Yeah, pretty much. So I am quite looking forward to that. The next live letter will probably come out in between whenever we do the next podcast, because we're going to get to 5.3 for that, and well, we'll get to there eventually. We'll get there eventually. Anyway, another major thing that I have to talk about is that I finally bit the bullet and decided to be a healer for a while.
Yeah, so you decided to go ahead and engage. Well, you were a healer. You had Scholar at max.
I had Scholar at max, but I did not know how to play that class. So I decided to say, you know what? Let's start from the ground up and start with White Mage.
And how was it learning a new role class from scratch?
I now have a much better appreciation for healers. And also, I now realize most tanks are fucking idiots.
There are a lot of fucking idiot tanks, as we found out.
A lot of them don't bother using mitigations.
Which will become very important when we start talking about certain dungeons.
Oh, Mr. Switch. Oh, yeah. But, yeah. I will say that the healer quest line is kind of mid.
So you went through White Mage, correct?
White Mage. So first off, you gotta do the Conjurer's quest line, which the Conjurer is basically... You have to learn the words and wisdom of the woods, basically. You have to learn about the wind, the earth, and the water, pretty much.
I always found that very interesting, because everyone has, since Final Fantasy started, everyone has always had the impression of white mages being clerics, basically. The D&D, the Final Fantasy equivalent of clerics.
Yeah.
And yet this very clearly puts them in the role of druids.
Pretty much.
Versus the astrologians, who actually do pay attention to the gods.
Yeah.
Or at least the celestial movements of the planets.
Of the heavens, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, the clerics, the conjurers are basically druids, and white mages are actually supposed to be a job that's only allowed by the Pajal of the Twelveswood, because back in the War of the Magi, there was the white mages versus the black mages, and the Twelveswood guardians were like, yeah, let's put the white mages on ice and only let a select few have them.
And so how is it that your Warrior of Light becomes allowed to access this otherwise forbidden class?
Basically, there is a tree that is the guardian of the Twelveswood. You know, the one that we pulled Y'shtola out of.
Yes. And
basically, it gives you the White Mage Jobstone because the previous owner of that Jobstone, Atoakant, basically its spirit was like, I have found my new successor. And one Pajal, which is the sister to Arun Senna, was like, Connie Senna, I mean. Yeah, it's Arun Senna and God, I forget their names. It's
the little brother one.
It's the little brother one.
Who gets into a tissy fit because a non-Pajal has now access to the Pajal job.
Yes, and he is quite noticeably angry, but because we were supposed to cleanse and appease the great tree because there was something going on that was making it angry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically the whole thing. You're just trying to appease the forest the entire time.
Okay.
And basically, you learn how to white mage. The little brother eventually grows up to appreciate you after he's gotten his ass handed to him, and I help. And we eventually heal the tree with the help of Aethercast, whose spirit appears to help with it. Mm-hmm. And that's basically the A Realm Reborn quest line.
Similar parallels to what they would eventually do with Freyr Mist in Heaven's Word.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
But more edgy, obviously.
More edgy, but basically the spirit of the previous owner of the Jobstone comes to help you, and you heal the force.
Okay.
In the Heaven's Ward version, you are finding out that there's something called the Taint affecting the forest. Yeah, I know. Haha, very funny. But basically, we go and find what is basically the because Aethercast actually was one of the few Pajal to leave the 12's Wood, because Pajal aren't really allowed to leave because of tradition and stuff like that. But Aethercast was the only one to leave, and this one warrior's grandfather was basically Aethercast's guardian of sorts, and so she wants to find out what's causing the taint, and we basically find out it's coming somewhere from Kurthus. Mm-hmm. We go out there, we explore, and we find out that basically the taint is coming from this one
Void Scent?
It's not a Void Scent, it's God, I forget the name of the race, the horned race.
Aura?
The Aura, thank you. My brain is fried today.
Okay. But
basically, it's coming from this one Aura girl who is trying to revive the dead, basically. Mm-hmm. And so she wants... it's basically revealed that she wants revenge against Ishgard because of the way the Aura have been treated by the Ishgardians.
Purge all sinners, heresy, so on and so forth.
Heretics, they're dragon-like, and so they're given...
Oppressed.
They're oppressed, pretty much.
Yes, continue.
And so we find out that she's trying to revive a dead dragon, and basically the only way for it to keep moving is she needs to corrupt the area around it.
Continue to give it ether to function.
Pretty much. And so we basically stop her, and instead of killing her, Arun Senna basically takes her under her wing to try to teach her the ways of the white. Mm-hmm. Which sounds so fucking racist.
Yeah, not exactly the best way to try and close off a redemption arc.
I know I mean, they call me Rei'tan of the White. Mm-hmm. I don't like that name.
I can imagine why.
Yeah, but regardless, that's the Heaven's Ward quest line. It's simple. It's all right. Stormblood. That one actually involves another Pajal that was actually been hidden away by a mother. The little girl's name is Getty, and she was born as a Pajal. The mother did not want her to be raised by the Pajal because that meant she would be taken away from the mother, because the mother wanted to raise her kid.
Right.
And so she went basically to the East End, which is the area of the 12's Wood that's beyond Baelsar's wall, mm-hmm. and basically hidden in secret. But the problem is that Getty cannot control her power as a Pajal. And it's attracting Void Scent, mm-hmm. which has also slowly started to affect the mother.
Right.
Yeah. And so, I forgot to mention this, but basically the character from the Conjurer's quest line, which is Sylphie.
Yes.
She basically comes in and wants to be her teacher. Be Getty's teacher in the ways of the white. Of the white, so forth. And so that happens for a little bit, and basically what happens is it culminates in a battle with the Void Scent when they eventually kill the mother, and mm-hmm. Getty's power kind of goes wild. Right. But we manage to calm her down, and eventually we bring her in to basically the Conjurer's Guild to learn the ways, because...
So that way she can engage her Blue Eyes White Destiny.
Pretty much.
You know that's what they're calling the new starter deck for Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
Blue Eyes White Destiny?
That is the next Blue Eyes White Dragon starter deck, and Wooly appropriately reacted to it the way Wooly does.
Did he?
He was. You have to understand, Wooly gets a kick out of it when he sees nonsense like that. He thrives off of it.
I know he has emotes in his chat that are basically skin tone with different numbers on it.
Yes.
And I think one is like white.
Yes.
And so I'm pretty sure the chat room was just flooded with that.
Yes.
But regardless, the White Mage questline then caps off with the Shadowbringers post-quest line of you going and meeting up, and Sylphie, Getty, and the Aura lady are all becoming friends in a way. And you basically find out that the Twelveswood is a little angry again because an Ixal basically attacked one of the Guardians to cause a little bit of a ruckus.
Mm-hmm.
And so it culminates in all of them working together and becoming fast friends.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, so I'll give the White Mage questline 7 out of 10.
Okay.
It's serviceable. It's serviceable, but honestly, Dark Knight questline is... Oh, boy.
Okay. What have I done non-Shadowbringers related? I finished Dominant Reconstruction.
So, how'd you enjoy that?
Honestly, that was a very, very nice little building detour. It was very nice to see the kids again, to build the school for them. As far as my favorite aspect of it, between that and then having the lantern ceremony at the very end, especially with everyone getting emotional, it felt very appropriately, especially given that I was still doing bits of Shadowbringers throughout it, or right near I think I was probably about the middle when I finally finished Omen Restoration.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say it definitely was the right place for it.
All right. That's good.
Very good on that end. I did start a bit more. I think I've started properly on my alt storyline for Yuzu, who is my Lalafell alt. Starting through the quest line for
Ninja?
not Ninja, but Rogue.
Oh.
So the Rogues Guild is very interesting. It actually operates as basically a independent check for the Maelstrom.
Right. Basically,
As the guild leader explains it, the Rogues Guild was one of the various pirate gangs prior to the establishment of Emet-Selch. And when Merweb basically united the pirates under her banner, I think it was the Crimson Daggers or the Crimson Rogues, basically were the only ones who were the first ones to give allegiance, and therefore were the ones who were basically trusted to enforce the Pirates Code throughout Limsa.
Okay.
So anyone who goes ahead and acts against the Pirates Code or against Limsa Lominsa and can't be brought under the heel of Maelstrom proper meets them instead.
So basically they're the Shadow Guard.
They're the Shadow Guard, yes. And they are a plucky bunch of rogues. You interact with a couple of different of the guild members. I think it's the second quest. You are going out on a mission, and your keepers goes to the guildmaster and says, "Hey, has anyone seen my finger sandwich?" And the guildmaster is quietly panicking because he didn't realize that it was hers.
Oh boy!
And so he tasked one of the other lieutenants to go get another finger sandwich on the double and make sure that the one who it belonged to doesn't find out. You do your mission. You learn how to sneak, and by the time that you finish the quest line, the subordinate that was tasked with getting the finger sandwich announces cheerfully that he's gotten it back with no issues, right in front of whomever he stole it from.
Oh boy!
The punishment? He was hung out in front of the headquarters by a rope.
By the neck?
Not by the neck. No, he was wound up and tied up body style, and he was left out for exposure for a little bit as punishment.
Jesus.
Yes, they do make a joke about that, but it dovetails into a more serious quest line. Basically, there is a Yellow Jacket adjudicant who believes that the Shadow Guard are not necessary and thinks that Maelstrom can handle all of the law enforcement duties by itself. And she's a very delusional Lalafell. Basically, what ends up happening is that at the next job quest, she issues a public challenge because basically both the Yellow Jackets and the Rogues Guild are having to deal with a plot for people to smuggle out weapons to be given to Sahagin cultists.
Yeah.
And so basically they're trying to find out who the mole is. And so this I forget what the Yellow Jacket's name is, but she basically challenges the Rogues Guild to a thieving contest. The Guildmaster gives no fucks. and basically is questions the small sassy child, but basically he isn't worried about the position.
I see.
But that's basically I'm about halfway through the Rogues quest line, so we'll see how it develops as I get going into it further.
All right.
I have not started even a dip on doing what is the job before Warrior?
Marauder.
Marauder. I have not started Marauder yet.
I've seen you're still on my first act, which means you're still on the opening quest.
Right, and the only reason that is because I haven't taken the time to do the Smiths stuff, so that way I get the double XP boost as I'm going through that.
Right.
So that's the plan. Is basically Izima's earrings plus beginner's ring. Stuff my face until I get the bonus. I do need to do the world transfer so I can join the borrower company, and then I basically just hammer this thing as hard as possible to get myself to level 80 before we start. Endwalker
because you need the brand new ring and the Neophyte's ring.
Brand new ring, Neophyte's ring, and Izima's earrings.
Yeah. The brand new ring will get you to level 30.
Yes.
The Neophyte's ring will get you to level 60, and Azima will take you the rest of the way.
Right. Although we only need to go to 80 for these purposes.
Right, because we're going to have you go as Warrior through Endwalker, and you can worry about the rest of your jobs whenever you want to do them.
Right.
Because for Shadowbringers, I made you do all the role quests.
Yes. Which meant getting at least 4 of my 5 classes up to snuff.
Yeah, and again, I'm sorry for that. I just wanted you to get this important thing because it is relevant for stuff later on.
Yes, and we will go ahead and discuss that as we get to it. Why don't we go ahead and start breaking into the MSQ because we are going to be here for a while.
Okay, so in the last podcast, we had talked about the Welcome to Shadowbringers moment where you went with Alice.
Correct.
Here, we end up going with Alphino.
Yes.
To the other end to go to Calusia and find the City of Final Pleasures, Yulmore.
Well, we have to go through Calusia proper before we get to Yulmore. And Calusia is supposed to be Limsa slash
Vilbrand.
Vilbrand.
The entire island of Vilbrand.
And the entire island of Vilbrand. But basically, everyone on the outskirts has to deal with sea eater attacks and wildlife, and is basically fending for themselves. When they get too desperate and fed up with that nonsense, they move on over to the outskirts of Yulmore called Gate Town.
Yep, and they are basically offering themselves up in service to the people of Yulmore, basically saying, because the people of Yulmore are saying, we need a cook, we need an artist, we need this
a songstress.
We need a songstress, we need this or that. Can you provide? Can you do this?
It's done in a sort of lottery-style manner, although there is a bit of appealing to the jonglers who basically are acting as the service providers in this case.
Who basically are Zorn and Thorn from Final Fantasy IX.
And while the lucky winners get pulled into Yulmore, the losers are not left wanting. They are given Mule, which is unknown vague foodstuffs.
It's butt bread, as I've been known to call it.
That's what we're going with for right now.
Yeah.
But everyone's given a dose of butt bread just for showing up, and then otherwise, those lucky few who are let in are able to do so. Initially, Alphino's plan to get in is to basically conduct some trade
with the Ondo or the Sahagin to exchange pearls for... exchange fruit and stuff for pearls.
Right.
Which pearls he could then sell to the people of Yulmore.
Basically posing himself as a jeweler.
Yes. But it turns out that a Mikote fellow by the name of Kaishir, who, by the way, will become a custom delivery quest later on, he basically steals the idea from Alphino and tries to get into Yulemoor, saying that his best friends are already in Yulemoor and they all made a promise to get into the city together.
Mm-hmm.
At first, we're like, oh, come on, dude. But then Alphino who has matured quite a bit, says, go ahead, do that. We'll figure out another way.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way actually quickly springs up on us, and it turns out that an artist was literally thrown overboard of Yulemoor.
Whom we rescue and help back into Calusia proper, but we end up taking his place as Alphino's previously mentioned artistic talents come to play.
Yes. And with that, we get entered into Yulemoor after taking a shower and getting doused in perfume.
Well, we were brought in as his faithful assistant, whom he cannot do his job without, and so Zorn and Thorn basically say, fine, but we're keeping an eye on you.
Pretty much. We're a vagrant.
We are yet to be determined help.
Yes.
But we go ahead and meet our new employers, the Chais.
Ah, the Chais. I love them.
Julia Chai and Chai Nuz, correct?
Dulia Chai.
Dulia Chai and Chai Nuz.
Yes.
I think Julia Childs. I think that's why I called her that.
But
boy, that woman is fat.
Yes.
I'm sorry. There is no escaping the whale allegations on this one. This woman, this beast of a woman. Holy God! How did Chai Nuz land such a whale of a wife?
I don't know, but apparently they really love each other because Chai Nuz is fucking whipped.
He is an interesting character. He initially comes off as sort of a stern male figure, and it does become apparent over time that he is, of course, very dutifully in love with his wife.
And very capable, surprisingly.
And very capable, but at least at the start, the issue is for Alphino to sketch their portrait while we are basically tasked with familiarizing ourselves with the city.
Meanwhile, Dulia Chai is currently dressing up Alphino like a little doll.
She does enjoy that very much.
Yes, but we explore Yulemoor. We see servants that are actually tied to Yulemoor who enjoy their time there, but
for the most part, provided they continue to allow service.
Yeah, but they're the free and the bound, basically.
Basically, the free people were those nobles who were already parts of Yulemoor and basically continue to enjoy the full services of Yulemoorans, and the bound, those outsiders who are basically allowed in, provided they do services for the free.
Yes, and so we continue exploring, and we learn about that. Chai Nuz does not like Alphino's sketch, which is like, really, dude? That picture was just a sketch, and I was already jealous of him.
Well, Chai Nuz, as we later learn, is a bit of a perfectionist, almost to a neurotic degree.
Yes.
And we later learn that he has some very self-loathing issues. God, isn't that familiar?
Oh God, yeah.
But there are two aspects I think you skipped over.
Yeah.
One is the fact that a certain bar is reincarnated here.
Certain bard?
The bar.
Oh, bar.
The hive.
Oh, the Honeybee Inn.
The Honeybee Inn is reestablished here as a pseudo strip club.
Oh yes. There's plenty of roleplay going on in that place.
Yeah,
Don't go to there in Balmung.
I was gonna say the Balmung server must be popping.
Yeah.
The other thing is that while we're exploring the city, we come across a songstress who's begging for help from an apothecary. We go ahead and we try to investigate it, but the man says, "Yeah, you're fucked. There is nothing to be done at this point."
And then when her free owner finds out that her voice is ruined, he goes and says, "Well, we can talk to Lord Vothri to see if we can have you ascended."
And immediately, anyone who has any familiarity with cults should be having alarms flaring off at this point.
Yeah, I believe we've already had red flags 1 through 4 at this point.
Kind of, but this is the very clear, obvious one that is supposed to be the marker of not everything that glitters is gold.
Yeah, this isn't the red flag. This is crimson.
So, we eventually go ahead and we get back to the situation with Chai Nuz critiquing Alphino's picture. We get some banter about Julia Chai wanting it to be... It turns out that really Chai Nuz's issue is that he's obviously drawing Dulia very obviously.
Yeah.
He's not thinning her down. He's not giving her the Napoleon treatment.
Yeah.
And so he's flustered because of what other people would think about that, whereas Dulia is absolutely in love with it and thinks that it's that Chai-Nuz doesn't really have to put on airs for her.
Yeah. But before Dulia Chai can even say that, we get word that there is an issue in Yulmore, and we must all go up to Vothri's royal chamber to deal with an intruder of sorts.
I think it was someone who was going to get punished.
Yes,
I think it was what it was.
Someone was going to be punished, and we immediately find Kai-Shir in the middle of Vothri's throne room, bleeding on the floor. And then we go and look at the beast himself.
Beast is actually there is a lot of fat shaming I'm realizing in this particular section of the podcast.
There's no shame for Dulia Chai. She is wonderful.
She is wonderful.
She
absolutely.
is perfect.
But Vothri, if I said Dulia Chai was fat, it's only because in comparison to other
monsters in the
no, not even monsters. Mikote. In comparison to other Mikote, she's a beautiful, bountiful woman in that aspect. Vothri is art that you have drawn.
Vothri is art that I have drawn, but drawn in a way that makes them hideous.
Yes, we're going full Fat Wojak with him.
Yeah.
Is basically the way that I would describe Vothri.
He is basically almost like Don Corneo, if you've seen the Final Fantasy remakes.
No, he eats Don Corneo for breakfast. That is how fat Vothri is. Vothri is so fat that he went ahead and it wasn't the moon dropping that killed the 1.0. Vothri just ate it.
Yeah. But yeah, Vothri is a horrifying man who can apparently control the Sin Eaters.
And is de facto king of Yulmore.
Pretty much.
He basically goes ahead and passes judgment on Chai-Nuz, basically.
Not Chai-Nuz, Kai-Shir.
Or Kai-Shir, sorry. He passes judgment on Kai-Shir for, I believe it was theft.
It was theft because fraud.
Oh, fraud.
Because of his deal with the Ondo. So apparently he was like begging for mercy, and so Vothri said, pound of flesh for the Sin Eaters. Right. And so he had to try to cut his own arm off, which is... that's a lot of blood. You don't really see that much blood in Final Fantasy 14.
But in Final Fantasy generally, even.
Yeah.
I would say. Not until 15 would I say we get even close to that same borderline.
And then 16 really showed the blood.
Right.
Yeah, but blood really isn't seen in Final Fantasy. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Alphino and us come up and basically try to fight off the accusations and try to help Kai-Shir. We heal him. Vothri is not having it, and Vothri asks, "What is your role, Alphino?" And he says, "Painter." And Vothri's like, "Paint a picture of me for Yulmore, and I'll forgive you for healing this boy."
And Alphino's having none of it.
No, he says, "What you need is a mirror. It will perfectly capture the vileness I see in front of me." And that is some of the sickest burn I've heard from Alphino. My boy has grown up.
Yes, needless to say, that the criticism is not taken well.
Vothri has a fucking baby tantrum.
We are forced to flee with Kai-Shir, and we basically are exiled from Yulmore at this point.
Yes. And so we return to the Crystarium, in which the Crystal Exarch tells us about the Light Wardens, the beasts that came from the empty, the barren wastelands beyond Norvrant, that came in and brought eternal light to the area.
And so it seems, at least based on what he's telling us, it's these Light Wardens that are the main threats that are perpetuating and leading the localized fronts of various Sin Eaters.
Yes. And so we need to find a way to defeat them. And as soon as we bring that up, Lena, the captain of the Crystarium Guard, comes in and says, Holminster Switch is being attacked.
And thus begins our first dungeon encounter.
And so we go in, and so Holminster Switch.
The difficulty spike is noted. Thank you, Yoshi P.
Yes.
So yeah, this is definitely I have tanked quite a bit since my first forays into Final Fantasy XIV, and whereas I initially did not have a fair grasp of the concept, now I very much do have a more concentrated picture. Holminster Switch is a reminder you are not to trifle with its systems.
Yes. Like I've said multiple times, the gremlins in there will cause massive debuffs, and the wolves cause intense burst damage.
That they do. And even then, that's just with their regular attacks. That's not with their AoEs that you have to walk out of the way from.
Being a white mage in that is really helpful, because you can just stun everything.
Yes, it is.
And make sure no damage happens to the tank.
Yes.
But you are going to need to use mitigations.
As we found, which when you don't use mitigations, that can lead to problems.
Yes.
Or even wrongly timed mitigations, as you found out.
Yeah, because the first time you went through it, you were being a healer.
No, I was tanked. The first time.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, right.
The original run through, I was doing tank because I was playing Dark Knight for most of the story. I did eventually switch to healer later.
Yes,
but
and when we did your first run of Holminster Switch as a healer, I was a warrior and I was dying.
Yes, and that had initially, at least with my DPS healer tendencies, and then it became more of timing and mismanagement on your end.
Yes.
But it really is, at least compared to Stormblood and even Heavensward by comparison, this is a much more rude awakening in terms of a difficulty curve. It's expecting you to know how to conduct yourself.
Yeah, at this point it's like, learn the mechanics or get fucked.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very fun dungeon. The first fight is actually against the giant Sin Eater that attacked Tesleen.
Yes.
And you quickly learn that most of a Sin Eater's moves are based on torture devices.
The Sin Eater's names are based off of various devices. Their attacks are based off of torture. And of course, our second fight is actually against Tesleen herself.
Which is a really fucked up thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you actually go in there with the trust system, which was introduced in Shadowbringers, Alisaie actually has stuff to say about it. And the Crystal Exarch even responds, I see. You know who this is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's fucked up. But then, at the end of the dungeon, we get to the first Light Warden, Philia.
Philia. I will say, if the naming on the bosses is all on point, in addition to all of these previous Sin Eater lore, the Light Wardens are all named after different versions of love.
Yes.
In this one, Philia meaning a familial love.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a very good boss fight. I think this is the one that first had limit cut.
No, Tesleen had limit cut.
Oh, Tesleen had limit cut.
No, this one had the weird AoE side swipes that you had to do. And it would chain one of your allies and would do a massive AoE attack.
It also had the rotating burst attack where you had to follow it running around the area of the field.
It would do 2 slams, which would cause rock spikes to come up, and then it would also sweep its tail, so you had to be like right on the sides of it as it kept moving. And
right.
That's a fight.
We actually see that mechanic used quite a bit throughout this particular expansion.
Yeah.
With Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
Mr. Clean uses that a lot. But yeah, Holminster Switch was definitely a mix-up. I will say, just as a narrative point, looking back, they don't make it as much of an issue about how many people survived to know who a former Sin Eater was.
Yeah.
Aside from Tesleen, this is mainly used in the role quest later on, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think that there is maybe 1 or 2 other points in which this is brought up, but that is an underrated point that I don't think gets brought up, at least in MSQ. A couple of the lesser quests I had to do for like ether currents and stuff, that does get brought up, but not nearly as prominently as I think it should.
Yeah, but it's still a threat. The Sin Eaters are a threat.
Yes.
It is basically a zombie apocalypse.
It is basically a fantasy zombie apocalypse, yeah.
Yeah.
Needless to say, despite the casualties, you are able to put down the Light Warden, and the only way that you're able to kill it for good is by absorbing its ether.
Yes, but only we can do it because we have the blessing of light from Hydaelyn. Anyone else would just become another Light Warden. Mm-hmm. That's why they could not stop them.
Which we are able to not only absorb that ether, but in doing so returns night to that particular region of the world.
And if you've seen the opening menu for Shadowbringers, that is what you do. You split the sky and bring back the sunless sea.
Mm-hmm.
For 100 years, there hasn't been a night. Most of the people in the Crystarium have never seen night before.
Until we show up.
Yep. And basically everyone is already claiming the Warrior of Darkness has come.
And that goes into a lot of the lore for this star.
Yeah.
As to why they worship the night.
Yeah.
But Holminster Switch, we managed to go ahead and get finished with that, and we eventually have to deal with a certain piece of shit.
Oh, sheet! It's Ranjit!
Yes, this fucker.
General Ranjit, commander of Yulmor's army, walks into the ocular while we are hidden in plain sight thanks to the Exarch's magic.
And issues a demand of allegiance.
Yes, basically, side with Yulmor or be trampled, because we will not accept the fact that the Light Wardens are dying. This world is dead. We must just submit to them.
To which the Exarch refuses politely, and Ranjit seemingly stares at the Warrior of Light, Alphino and Alice, seemingly through the magics.
Yeah, which tells you right now, do not fuck with this old man.
Right. He's no Xenos, though.
He's no Xenos. He is no Xenos, but he is basically our wall for this expansion.
He is supposed to be... I honestly think my biggest issue with him is that he does not get enough of a build-up.
Yeah, we don't get his full reason for the way he acts until we get to the fourth Sin Eater.
No, not the reason he acts. I mean, let me put it this way. When we meet fucking Xenos for the first time, we see him literally casually slaughter through an entire legion's worth. And not just slaughter them with such casualness that you would swear that he's window shopping through a fucking department store.
Yeah, he's just going like, no, seen it, bored. Ooh, what's this?
He's counting the number of different death threats and dying declarations that have been made, like he's Frieza from Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
193.
Yes. So, and I think that's what's missing from Ranjit, is that, because we get that soon after.
Yes.
We find out after this conversation that ultimately, if we're going to need to take out the Light Warrens on a permanent basis, we're going to need the help of Minfilia.
Not our Minfilia, however.
This world's Minfilia.
Or should we say, the reincarnation of Minfilia.
So, when we initially fly to the first,
we see Minfilia stopping the flood of light.
With the assistance of the Warriors of Darkness.
Yes.
And as she's about to, after all of the other companions basically sacrifice their lives to stop the flood, before Ardbert is brought in, we basically see it from his perspective, in which Minfilia says,
your time has not yet come.
And Minfilia is the one who delivers the final blow to stop the flood. Ever since then, allegedly, Minfilias are born once in age, and basically have acted as Warriors of Darkness in turn, basically fighting off Sin Eaters.
Yeah.
And trying to maintain balance.
Well, she is known as the Oracle of Light.
As the Oracle of Light.
And she is immune to the Sin Eater's powers, and so she's often been used to fight against it. And often, it's through Yulmor's armies to fight the Sin Eaters.
What ends up usually happening is that she's reincarnated after her death, usually to an Ilmoran couple, born blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yes.
With the same sort of ether. And with a high intensity of ether. And therefore, as soon as a Minfilia is located, she is collected by the Yulmor army, trained, and then sent out to fight against the Sin Eaters.
And that means countless Minfilias have died in the past 100 years.
Now, this latest incarnation is different, because they did not train this Minfilia, but instead they simply kept her ransom.
Kept her ransom under lock and key in Yulmor's cells.
Save for the interference of one Thancred?
Yes.
Thancred Rivers?
Thancred Waters. Yeah, Thancred Waters ends up saving our Minfilia over 5 years ago, and they have been traveling together. However, it turns out that the Yulmorans have gotten wind of Minfilia and have captured her.
Which requires our not just Thancred's work, but also basically a counterattack as a full platoon is out to make sure that Minfilia is secured.
Yes. And so the Exarch basically brings his people of the Crystarian together and says, I am going to fight Yulmor. Are you with me or are you not? And everyone has pretty much said, do you even need to ask?
Well, considering that the Knight is back, everyone is more than back in full swing and having faith in the Exarch, and is more than happy to put their efforts in. We go around Fort Job and the what's the other place? The Ostio.
The Ostal Imperative.
The Ostal Imperative, and basically assist in preparations for the siege, which leads us to gaining a Crystarian soldier's uniform and joining them in the charge as we
rain dream powder
over them to assist in the assault. A number of them are not affected, but more than enough are knocked out that it becomes an even fight.
Pretty much. And so we charge in, we find Minfilia, and we give her daggers, which basically means that Thancred taught her the rogue's abilities.
Which makes sense because that was his original job.
Yeah.
And still and at least was his job before we find out that he picked up a gunblade instead.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Which leads us directly into our first encounter with Ranjit.
And he kicks our ass.
Well, he kicks our ass for plot reasons, although he does indicate that he's holding back somewhat because he's not channeling the full power of his
Gukumats.
Of Gukumats, his dragon spirit.
Yeah, so I'm just going to tell you this. Gukumats is basically a beast born from his blood. Gukumats is a type of martial arts. Basically, his is the monk class. Initially in the first.
Okay.
But Gukumats is basically a beast born of his blood that helps power him up.
I was thinking it was kind of like, do you remember that compass spirit in Stone Free JoJo?
I think so.
I can't remember what the stand's name is, but it's the one that basically does combat feng shui.
Ah, yeah, that one.
That one. That's basically what I was imagining Ranjit was doing with this.
I can kind of see that, but basically it just helps fight with him, and it causes a lot of problems. Regardless, we get our ass kicked for plot reasons. Thancred comes in and fights against him, and then I don't think it was him, but I think the Exarch basically used the teleportation magic to get us out of Fort Job, and so we could make our way to the next area.
Yeah, he tells us basically the plan at this point is you need to go to the Fairy Kingdom because you need to go get
the next Light Warden.
No, you need to go get our friend Bisexual Disaster.
Oh yes.
Urianger. So go to Ilmeg, go find Urianger, and then deal with that situation. He goes and sends us on our merry way. Ranjit comes up to the Crystal Exarch and says, "You fool, you followed right into my trap." To which the Crystal Exarch goes, "I wasn't even here, bitch," and reveals that he's basically using a hologram.
Yeah, pretty much, because Ranjit tries to go after us. The Crystal Exarch uses Break, which usually in Final Fantasy is a petrification spell, but here it's basically slow to stop.
Mm-hmm.
It stops them, and they have an argument. Meanwhile, a certain Ascian is sitting overhead looking at what's going on.
Have we talked about him in the last session?
Yes, we did talk about Solusos Galvus, but you know who he is.
Well, not yet, but Solusos Galvus will make his appearance very soon.
Yes, after
this.
After Ilmeg.
After Ilmeg. So we'll talk about him then, proper. I have a lot of thoughts about him.
Yeah.
But we make our way to Ilmeg, and Ilmeg is the remnants of the Verbert Kingdom in the first, which coincides with Ishgard.
Yes, it is basically Ishgard. And basically, the humans abandoned it, and the Fae moved in.
Before we go on to Ilmeg, do you have any additional comments about Lakeland and the Crystarium in general?
First off, I love Lakeland. I love the purple foliage. It's so different that it's a great way to start the story. You wake up in it, and you're like, what is this strange new world?
Not only do you wake up in it, but then you wake up in eternal day, which really throws you off. I do like the Crystarium being basically the last bastion for all intents and purposes. There are other civilized towns, but the Crystarium is basically the last bastion of humanity.
Pretty much. That and Yulmore are the last bastions.
Yeah.
But the Crystarium is basically where most people go to. There are other settlements in different areas, but again...
The biggest.
The biggest.
And also, they really get to really quick with, look, we have different names for everyone here. Just here's the rundown for everything. Don't think too much about it.
Yeah. The only ones I really remember are the Elizin are elves, the humans are Humes, and the Hrothgar are Ronso.
Don't forget the Lalafell are dwarves.
The Lalafell are dwarves, and the Aura are Dran.
Dran.
Yeah.
Yes, and this actually has the debut of the Viera.
Yes, this had the debut of the Viera because Lena is a Viera and a dancer, which also came in.
Do they have a different name for the Makote?
They do, but I forgot what they were called.
It's fine. But for all intents and purposes, aside from the name changes, that's generally all we need to know.
Yeah.
We do make our way to Ilmeg, and basically it is ye old-fashioned Fae trap.
Yeah, it is. Everything is enshrouded in fog. The Fae have dazzled and bewildered us, so we can't figure out our way to Urianger. And so we need to... Well, first off, as we're trying to figure out a way to see them, we find a special looking glass that the Thancred uses to find them, and we try to then tell the Fae to cool it with the magics and let us go see Urianger.
Yes.
Who apparently beat the Fae in a riddle contest through 7 days and 7 nights.
Through 7 days and 7 nights, they made him into a man-whore.
Yes, they did, because, well, first off, we're jumping ahead.
So, actually, we also forgot that we had to call upon certain aid.
We had to call upon Feoul, and by that I mean use the say command multiple times and be very...
In a very pleading tone.
In a very pleading tone, punctually accurate with commas and exclamation points. Oh, Feoul, loveliest of branches, give us our aid.
Now, I'm playing on computer, so I have a keyboard. How was that for you?
Hell. I think that was the reason why I got a controller keyboard.
Because of that specific interaction.
Because I was thinking, oh god, are they going to make me do this again in the future? I need a fucking keyboard. I had initially had an old-fashioned keyboard from my dad's old Apple. You know the apples that had the neon colors on the back.
Yeah, the ones that they used in our grade school years.
Yeah, I had a keyboard from that, and I plugged it into my PS4 at the time. That was hell.
So yes, we had to call upon Feoul to basically enforce his ownership rights on us. To basically say, quit trying to mess with my sapling.
Yes.
To which the Fae basically fall in line and agree to help us, direct us to Urianger.
Yes, who has now become an astrologian and entered his man-whore arc.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Urianger has not gone... This is only his most recent encounter. He was with Y'shtola earlier, as we saw in the introduction.
Yes.
But he has gone ahead and separated from her to focus on research.
Yes.
As he explains to us the cosmology in better detail of what the fuck's going on.
Basically, the source had the wrong idea of what the fuck light and dark is. Astral means activity and growth. Umbral means passivity. It turns out the people of the first align umbral with light and astral with dark. That means light is passive and stasis. Darkness is activity and growth.
The source, however, has a different view of this, and that is what's led to sort of the confusion about light and darkness, at least to us, a conventional Final Fantasy fan.
Yes. Which is like, oh, that explains why Black Rose is going to cause the issues in the source, because it causes stasis.
Yes.
And so when the light from the first comes in to cause the Eighth Umbral Calamity, Black Rose is going to basically go into overdrive and kill more things than it was supposed to.
Which was going to be the downfall for the humanity and the master plan of the Ashians initially.
Yes.
So, Urian J basically says that if we're going to want to deal with this, we are going to need to be able to defeat the Light Warden here.
Yeah.
However, to do that, we need to gather various Fey treasures in order to be able to get an audience with Titania.
Because Titania defeated the previous Light Warden and absorbed the light and is now trapped in Iligire, the castle.
The castle. So basically there are 4... Is it 4?
It's 4 treasures. We get one immediately from the Fae. I forget which one we get, but it's a crown, a scepter, I believe an orb, and shoes.
Yes. So we get one from the Fae who basically agree, after doing a few chores for them, basically agreed to give us the treasure no problem.
The next one is we gotta get it from the Fuath, which are the water-dwelling fairies.
These fairies basically are toad people for all intents and purposes, and basically say, oh yeah, come down here, we're not gonna drown you.
No, we just want you to give us a combat experience.
Give us a show.
Yes, and so begins the second dungeon, Don Meg.
Don Meg is quite fun.
It is quite fun, but it also kind of reminds me of a Disney golf, like a golf course.
It kind of does, in a sense.
Like a mini golf course, that's what I was thinking.
It starts off with these very Alice in Wonderland type settings, and then you get pulled into ye old magic forest, filled with insta-kill bees and giant sentient trees who will obscure your vision.
Yes, and also, I will give anyone who is tanking in these areas a bit of advice. If you see one of the Fuath tethering to an enemy, immediately interrupt them, because they are giving a boost to one of them.
Yes. And generally, they will not reapply their buff unless at least a minute has passed.
Yeah.
By which point, you can probably down them pretty quickly.
So the first fight is the Anakthol, the Lord of the Lingering Gaze.
Right, his base form. Second boss fight is against the Growth Dino.
The Growth Dino, who basically you have to take one of the tethers and grow along with it, otherwise he's going to wipe you.
Yes, and then you go into the castle itself, get a fake-out ending, fight your way through a bunch of water genies and nymphs, and even a Kelpie or two.
Yeah.
And then you fight the prince again, except this time in his true form.
The Lord of the Lingering Gate.
Who is a bard.
He is a bard, and he is a fun fight. Learn the platform.
Yes, so he has a raid wipe where he basically sets you on the other side of the floor with an illusion. The illusion is you have to walk across a narrow path. If you fall in, you get reset back to the beginning. But he has basically an auto-kill timer going down in the background.
You have to basically defeat his violin.
Yes, if you beat the violin, it resets. You can proceed with the fight. We came close one time to failing because someone decided to go ahead and imbibe before starting this and could not get his ass together to go ahead and do DPS on the fucking violin.
I was the tank. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have done enough DPS.
I was healer that fights. I was doing most of the damage for it.
Well, sorry if I like to get high and run through dungeons.
Nonetheless, he does have a phase where he also becomes Cuchulainn temporarily.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with his nonsense.
Yes, and also, if the fight goes on long enough and he tries to do it again, he will turn into a little toad.
And you basically have the fight won at that point.
Yes, it is really funny when that happens.
Nevertheless, the Fuath are impressed with you. Impressed so much they try to drown you again.
Because they want to keep you. And apparently the Fuath are basically born of drowned souls. Thankfully, Stormblood happened and we can breathe underwater.
Right. We should also mention, because I think we have been skipping over this, throughout the areas, we are getting our area commentary
from
Ardbert. And so Ardbert also explains he knew the kingdom of Vorbert, and basically explains that this would have been the equivalent to Ishgard for us.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of flashbacks to how this sets up very similarly to the pillars.
Yes. And so we have a flashback of Ishgard, and then we have a vision of what would happen if we fail here. Mm-hmm. The whole city in ruins, that sort of thing. And we cannot have that.
Luckily, we survive because we are blessed with the
Kojin's magic.
With the Kojin magic, which lets us breathe underwater. And we quickly rejoin the party, who is very afraid for us.
Thankfully, we calm their nerves, and we make our way to the next tribe of Fae, the New Mo.
The New Mo, interestingly enough, at least my theory is that the New Mo are dogs and pets who were corrupted by the flood and ended up becoming these loyal Fae who are bound to serve.
Not really. I will tell you right now, there were New Mo that
right, there were New Mo before the flood. Yes,
yeah, there were New Mo before the flood that served in the Vobert court.
Yes.
Yeah. We will actually meet one of them.
Right. But they are docile to a point at which basically they will give you their treasures as long as they are able to help you.
Yes.
And you basically run a few fetch quests for them.
And during that time, Minfilia wants to help us with the last quest that we had to do. So we had to get ink and stuff, and Minfilia comes with us. And on the way back to give the ink to the New Mo, she talks about how we kind of skipped this before, but when we were talking with Urian J, Thancred talked about how he got to speak with the real Minfilia.
The real Minfilia is inside all the incarnations of the present of all the previous Minfilias, including the present one that we're with.
I'm just going to call our new Minfilia Minifilia until the point.
Right. So Minfilia channeling herself through Minifilia basically resolves her issues with Thancred Waters.
Yeah. But Thancred is not feeling resolved. He wants his Minfilia back.
For various reasons.
What of my needs? What of Flamine's? What about all our friends? And Minfilia literally says, at this point, I am no different than an Ascian, just possessing this little girl.
Which she's basically correct.
Yeah. And so she basically says, when the time comes, if this girl has grown too tired of the world, I will offer myself to become the new Minfilia. However, if she wants to fight back with all her heart and do what she can, then I will bequeath to her my all. Mm-hmm. And so she will become the new Oracle of Light proper.
Right. And so we also learned this is at least part of the reason why there was a quick succession of Minfilias is because of the fact that they either died before that point or never fully tapped into the Oracle's powers.
Right.
However,
Minifilia is basically going on the fact that when that event happened, she knew something had happened that made Thancred different.
And for lack of a better term, Minifilia has never really had a connection because of her isolation in Yulmore. And Thancred is the only one that she's basically been able to open up with. And even then, because of she was able to recognize Minfilia's connection with Thancred, Minifilia feels like I'm just the imitation to him.
I'm not his Minfilia.
And that's causing a lot of identity crisis for her.
She's having an identity crisis, and Thancred is not doing a good job being a dad.
So, unfortunately, that drama is going to have to get aired out sooner than later.
However, when she's talking about this, we suddenly get a massive headache, both her and the Warrior of Darkness, as Titania says, I'm bored. Let's play.
And so
she does a fucking horror scene.
Yeah, she basically jump scares you in the middle of this otherwise heartwarming moment.
And it's basically saying, yeah, we need to get on this shit. And so we finish with the Numos quest. I believe we get the scepter from them, and they lead us to the last group, which is a colony of awoken Amaro, which are basically the beasts of burden in this world.
They're equivalent of chocobos, which basically have bigger wings but are more dragon-like in comparison.
Yes.
We go ahead. The Amaro are very reluctant to assist us, as these Amaro are all basically sort of similar to the Auspices. They basically have lived long enough that they were survivors from when the flood happened, and many of them remember losing their owners and friends, and basically do not want to see humanity get hurt again.
Yes. We meet their leader, Seto, who is reluctant to offer us help, but says, if you can do this little thing for me, I can maybe help you. And it's basically to recover a medal that got, when he was attacked by Sin Eaters, got dropped into the lake, and we basically recover it.
We later find out that this medal was given to Seto by his master,
who turns out to be Ardbert.
Which, upon seeing upon seeing this memory and realizing what Seto has been through, where Seto basically has some more reflection and eventually decides that he's going to go ahead and help us.
This is basically the equivalent of your pet dog outliving you and becoming sentient and remembering the good times.
Basically the reverse of the Futurama moment.
Yeah, it's the Seymour moment.
The Seymour moment, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, Ardbert actually sees that, and the Seto actually says, "You remind me of Ardbert. Our kind can actually sense our master's souls, so we do not forget them. Mm-hmm. Yours is oddly similar to his.
Keep that point in mind."
Foreshadowing.
We get the shoes from the Awakened Amara, and now we can go ahead and attempt the trial here against Titania.
Yes. While that's happening, a pixie appears as some nasty, horrible people are coming and invading. So the Yulmorans have finally come, and they're causing a bit of problems, so we have to act quickly.
Yeah, some of the Scions go ahead and try to stop the Yulmoran nonsense. The rest of us go ahead and deal with Titania.
In comes the first trial of the expansion, the Dancing Plague.
Which, honestly, I know you love the music from this one.
Oh, I love the music. It's perfectly fey.
It is absolutely fey. It's a very good fight.
It is a bit rough when the bar build-up happens, where she summons the mustard seed, I forget the Puck and all the other little fey critters, and you have to fight them, and then they grow big.
Right, it's a reference to A Midsummer's Night Dream, I believe.
Yes, it is.
But nonetheless, Titania is downed, and you are able to go ahead and absorb the ether, bringing back Night to Ilmeg. There is one little problem, however.
Because we defeated Titania, we must take up the mantle.
Well, someone must take up the mantle. We have it by right because we took care of Titania. To which Fael Ul comes in and explains that we not take up the burden alone. We can task Fael Ul to go in our name.
And she happily does so, becoming the new Titania.
And it's at this point basically Titania we now know as a title.
Yes.
It basically every is it Fae King?
Yeah, it is the king. It is the king of the fairies.
Every king of the fairies takes on the name Titania.
Yes.
It is part title, part name. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
As really the foreshadowing layers on in this series. Nonetheless, Titania goes ahead, whisks us over to the village to go ahead and deal with the Amorans. We get to see a bunch of fantasy horror happening.
Oh yes! First off, when Ranjit's commander lackey orders them to attack, he turns around and finds out that his soldiers have been turned into leaf men.
And that is one of the various fates that happens to people in Ilmeg when they fuck around with the Fae.
Some end up stepping in the puddles and end up drowning in them. Some end up getting flipped up, turned upside down, and waved around by the new Mo.
Which probably breaks some necks at the same time, which is very disturbing to think about.
Yeah. And all the Fae are having a party, and then in comes Titania, and us riding on the backs of Amaro like a fucking fleet force.
I was gonna say, what is the song that everyone uses in Vietnam films?
Ride of the Valkyries?
No, that's one of them. Fortunate Son. That's the one I was thinking of. Fortunate Son could be playing in the background and would completely fit.
Yeah, I could see that. But basically, Ranjit's saying, I'm not dealing with this bullshit. Let's fuck out of here.
Yes, which is one of the few times Ranjit actually fucks off in this series.
Yeah, he's usually too stubborn to do that, but he's like, there's no way I can handle all of this.
Yes.
And so we end up returning to the Well, first off, Titania says, if you need our help, We shall help you, but keep in mind we fairy are fickle. We live in the present. We do not think of the future.
It's also at least part of the belief that even before the flood happened, Fae were basically deceased children.
Yes.
And that is why they have their very pre-adolescent mentality.
Yes. To give as much as taken, to borrow as much as received. Such is the way of Ilmeg.
Very simple, but very disturbing when taken to natural extremes.
Yeah, but basically, we've given all we can to them. They need to give back in return, eventually.
Right, and
keep that in mind.
And so we basically are allowed to leave Ilmeg at that point. We return to Crystarium, fill in the Crystal Exar to what's been coming and going.
But first off, as soon as we get to the Crystarium, we say everything looks good, and then in comes strutting in
Foxy Grandpa.
Solus Dos Calvus walks into the area, and Urianger is like, wait a minute, why is the Garlean royal emperor here? For starters, you look much too young to be there. And so he's basically like, I am Solus Dos Calvus, father of the Garlean Empire, and under various other aliases, brought rise to very imperially inclined nations. Aleg.
But you may call me Emet-Selch.
At your service.
To which Emet-Selch basically says, look, you've kicked La Habrea's ass.
You are currently meddling in the affairs of preventing another rejoining.
Let me try a change of tact. I will help you.
Cooperation, in fact.
Let me help you with your task at hand, and I will see to it that you get to go ahead and do what you need to do, and then maybe you'll help me and understand why you have to help me out.
Pretty much.
Of course, everyone's fucking flabbergasted and believes that you can't believe Emet-Selch more than you can toss him.
And even though I'm a Hrothgar and I'm pretty sure I could throw him pretty far, I still don't trust him.
Right. Needless to say, he basically accompanies the party against their will, for at least as he sees amusement. He is easily bored, as we find out.
Yeah.
And will basically pop in and out as convenient.
So, how was your first introduction to him?
Let's keep in mind, the only thing we know aside from the fact that he basically is the father of the Garlean Empire is also the fact that he fucking loves theater.
Yeah.
He is a theater kid at heart, and if you recall from the
Evilise raids, he is the entire reason that the company was even started. Yes.
Whether it was probably at least initially as a propaganda machine, but more because of the fact that he loves drama.
Oh, he is the biggest drama queen.
Yes.
He is an old gay drama queen.
Mm-hmm.
There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Mm-hmm. That man is not straight.
Yes. And he is absolutely a character. As to me, he is not my favorite antagonist. By far, objectively, he is the best antagonist. Because he is the one, as we'll explain later on, who has a point and is right. And that is a hard argument to drive when you're dealing in absolutes.
Yes.
We'll get to that more into the story, but for right now, he's basically tagging along and saying he wants to help us with our objectives insofar as getting rid of the Light Wards.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get to the point where we're back. We're explaining everything to the Crystal Exar. Don't mind Foxy Grandpa in the background.
Yeah, he's just going to do his own thing. And the Crystal Exarch is like saying, well then, why don't we try Raktika next?
Yes, to which Urianger basically explains. So, remember how, I think we've already explained at least this aspect of it, but it goes worth explaining again. Do you remember how everyone was taken one at a time from the source to the first?
Yes, Thankr's been here for 5 years, and Urianger and Y'shtola have been there for 3 years.
However, the Exarch neglected to basically mention that the time difference was going to cause issues in the first.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that he couldn't really bring everyone back at once. left the Y'shtola a little bit saltier than usual.
She was also not a fan of his penchant for secrets.
Which, of course, because he couldn't explain who he was or how he does things and why he does things, Y'shtola's basically refused communications with the Exarch.
Yeah, she has grown very bitter and sassy in the past 3 years.
And that's saying something, considering she already burned a man for trying to make her, trying to hit on her. Trying to hit on her, yes.
She was already sassy, now she's even more.
Yes. Needless to say, he only suggests going to Raktika now because he's hoping Urianger in your presence will basically lighten things up a little.
Yes, and so he also says, I've come with a peace offering for her. There is a relic in one of the nearby ruins in Fort Job, which I believe will help with your next mission.
Which, we go over to Fort Job, we uncover this relic, which turns out to be a fragment from
the Age of Ronka.
The Age of Ronka, which is basically their version of Alec.
It's their version of Alec. It's basically an ancient Mayan-like civilization that lives in the Raktika Greatwood.
Yes. Needless to say, it describes part of their religious text in which they foresee the Warrior of Darkness coming in from the Endless Sea, and explains some of the local mythology that would be central to the first.
Yes. And so, on our way through the Raktika Greatwood, Emet-Selch immediately waltzes in and goes on a old diplomatic tirade. Go forth, conquer, rule.
Because very much, again, the Roman dramatist in him.
Yeah, and then Thancred immediately says, if you brought your ivory standard, I can tell you where to stick it.
Mm-hmm. We initially start to go ahead and go towards the fort that was under siege.
In the trailer.
In the trailer, only to find out that it is completely burned down and was evacuated. However, that does not mean that we went in unnoticed, as we're quickly surrounded by
the Knights Blessed.
The Knights Blessed, who are basically a cult. I would say cult because they are basically religious fundamentalists living in isolation. But basically a cavalcade of religious devoutists living in the Raktika Greatwood.
Who are devoted to darkness.
Under the leadership of Y'shtola.
Who is going under the alias of Master Matoya.
For reasons basically for personal protection and for emotional stability, the Knights Blessed refuse to give their own true names when dealing with anyone. They basically give what was the way that they did it?
It's just an alias.
They never speak true names out in public.
They never say it in the light.
In the light.
Only in the dark do they speak their true names.
Right, and in the dark actually means behind closed doors, as they have basically created a conclave in a region they call Slitherbow, which basically includes underground tunnels and ruins.
Yes.
But needless to say, Master Matoya is initially not confused because she thinks that a Light Warden is attacking.
Yes.
And it takes her a moment to adjust her ether receptors before realizing that it's us.
Yeah, she could barely tell it was us because we must have looked like a fucking neon sign to her.
Right. To which is the start of basically, something is wrong here.
Yeah.
And Urianger, you're keeping secrets again.
Yeah, oh boy. We'll get to that. But first off, Y'shtola sees that it's us, tells the guards to step down. We go to Slitherbow, and we kind of help the Knights Blessed with various chores. We do the traditional greeting. We
receive basically a baptismal blessing, which includes blessings of holy water, which burn us.
Yes, because it's blessed with a prayer of darkness, and it is...
Which reacts negatively to all the light ether we've observed.
Yes, which is another red flag.
Right. The main sort of subplot before we're able to get Y'shtola to help us out is recovering the keystone from a recently fallen blessed member. Keystones are basically personal possessions that are
given at birth, and they are offered up
in death.
Yes.
So that way that the soul that it belonged to will go up and join the Warrior of Darkness when he sails upon the Sunless Sea to gather everyone again.
Right. And so we find one, and then we participate in a proper funeral, which Runar, our new favorite Hrothgar, gives the sermon.
Yes. Oh, Runar. I think if you remember Grahatia
Yeah.
from the ARR expansions, Runar is the new Grahatia.
Yes.
And in many ways, Runar surpasses Grahatia's expectations because he is adorable.
He is very adorable, and it is clearly obvious that he is crushing on Y'shtola.
Very much so, much to the envy of all Hrothgar players.
Yes.
Myself included. But for real, Runar is a very wholesome and supporting character. He offers to go. He basically assists in the defense of protecting Slitherbow when it's word that the Yulmorans are coming in, and we basically need to find our way into the other side of the Ronkin Great Woods, which is the blind forest of Yxmaya.
You got it! I was wondering if you were going to misspell that again.
I think I'm doing it at this point just to get a rise out of you. But nonetheless, we have to go ahead and find basically an ancient treasure that marks us as a friend of the Kingdom of Ronka, as there is a number of Viera who are guarding the blind forest.
And knowing that Viera are very long-lived, they are probably the last defenders of the Ronkin Empire.
They are, and they do admit that. At one point, we meet a trio of sisters who basically are the head guard, and basically after ingratiating ourselves to them, they basically help us find where we need to go, as there is
a path of blue flowers that leads us to their home of Fanau.
And also which will basically help us in determining where we need... Oh, I know, I remember there was something else, actually.
Oh, yeah, the Yulmorans have teamed up with the enemies of the Knights Blessed, the Keepers of the Dark, and has poisoned a few of the people of the Knights Blessed, and says that we will poison more if you don't surrender the Warrior of Darkness and Nymphilia.
Yes.
Yeah. So, while Slitherbow is kind of keeping Yulmor at bay, we go into underwater ruins to get the symbol of Ronka, and then we go to the Viera and go to Fanau, in which we have to explore a series of ruins.
Yes. This leads to a forced stealth quest.
Yeah.
At least for part of the mission. Which
Yeah.
I was not expecting that to be... They're definitely getting more inventive with the with the instances, I'll say that.
Yeah, you basically go through it Indiana Jones style, complete with runaway boulders.
Yes, you do.
And once we get to the area where we can figure out the way to open up the path to the Katana Revel, which is where we believe the Light Warden is hidden, we end up running into Ranjit again and his flunky.
Yes. We managed to go ahead and find in the Ronkin ruins that there is an antidote to the legendary poison that was...
Well, basically, it was the Yulmorans that had the poison.
Okay, yeah, but we found an antidote for it.
They were...
Oh, they had the antidote.
They had the antidote, and they were only offering it up because the lackey triggered a trap that was causing the floor to collapse into a ravine.
To which Ranjit says, we do not negotiate with terrorists. Kick said flunky into the pit.
To which Y'shtola dives in after the potion, knocks it towards us, and suddenly seems to disappear in a burst of wind.
Yes, which should be familiar to folks.
Yes, we're still dealing with Ranjit, but thankfully Thancred and Urianger basically use tether and just spike him into the ravine.
Yeah, like he's in freaking Smash of all things.
Yeah, although I can tell Urianger is a very sassy healer if he's using tether.
Yes, he is. Nonetheless, we get the antidote and find out that Runar was one of the poisoned.
Yes.
So we fortunately heal Runar, but then unfortunately have to break his heart by telling him that Y'shtola sacrificed herself to get the poison, or the antidote.
And then in waltz in Emet-Selch, who had previously disappeared after we had gotten captured.
And which basically says, are you all stupid? Have you not seen this magic trick done before? In which everyone remembers, oh right, she did this back in ARR trying to save Thancred.
She used the flow spell, and so she's currently trapped in the life stream.
To which basically, as a show of good faith, Emet-Selch goes ahead and says, let's find her, give me her approximate location and I'll pull her out of the live stream for you.
Yeah.
To which we do so, he does so, naked once again, Y'shtola comes out.
Snap of the finger, and she is redressed, and Runar is happily picking her up in his arms.
Yes.
And spinning her around.
Yes. To which he is absolutely amazed for that.
Yeah. So, Emet-Selch can control the live stream. That's an interesting thing.
I mean,
given what we know of who he is.
Right, I mean, he is an Ascian.
Yeah, well, not just that, but his title.
Right.
Yeah. But, sorry, I'm spoiling, but anyway, Y'shtola thanks Emet-Selch, and we finally make our way into the Kitana Ravel, our next dungeon.
Right. This one we've run quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, this one's actually one of my favorite dungeons in Shadowbringers.
I can see why. You basically have to deal with the first boss is this giant statue, which not only has wide swinging arm attacks, but is also paired up with basically side clearing lasers.
Yeah,
and so you have to be able to find
the safe spot between both.
Right.
It is pretty fun. We make our way through an area which I like to call the kill zone because there are too many enemies. There's alligators, there's chameleons, there's bats.
And at the end of it all...
Bat Squatch.
Which goes ahead and rains rocks and pillars down on you, to which... Oh, that's a... No, the drawings are later, right?
No, that's where the drawings are.
Oh, look, those are some nice drawings on the wall.
We'll come back to those.
And finally, we get to go into some native jungles, where we end up meeting our third Light Warden, Eros.
Yeah.
Which is passionate love.
Passionate love, and it's basically the Cerberus model all over again.
Yes, it is.
And that fight is a bit interesting because it has two unique attacks where it's going to blow some AoE attacks. It's either going to breathe fire out of its main mouth, and you have to stand on the sides while you got two people have AoE dots on them.
Or it's going to do side lasers, and you have to stand in the middle of it, and it's going to do and you have to stack because there's going to be a follow-up right after.
Right.
So you have that. You also have it spreads poison throughout the area, sucks you up all in front of it, and then throws you out into the poison.
Yes. And then there's also a move where I forget what it's called, but basically you get a tether attached to you, and you need to go as far back as possible. Otherwise, you're getting a Vuln stack, and I have to heal you, you fucking idiot.
To be fair, I did do that a few times, but that was more because I would be butt close to the darn thing, and I wouldn't notice that it actually gave me a tether.
Yeah, that happens. That happens with a lot of melee.
Yeah.
It never happens to the tank, because the tank doesn't have to deal with that. But the healers and the DPS have to remember, you're going to get a tether when it does Hound Out of Hell.
Yes, it does.
No, wait, Hound Out of Heaven.
There you go, yes, because it's a Light Warden, you see.
Yes.
So, needless to say, that one goes through, and we managed to absorb this Light Warden Seether without much issue.
Yeah, I don't remember if we started to feel an issue yet. No, wait, it happens when we get further.
It's at the next one.
Yeah.
But for right now, everything's good, much to Urian J's concern.
And more like Y'shtola's concern.
Y'shtola and Urian J's concern. And as we're walking back out, we come across a mural in the Bat Squatch arena, to which Emet-Selch decides to give us an impromptu history lesson.
He starts pining wistfully about the age long past before the sundering of a utopia, where an unprecedented calamity fell upon them, and they were forced to call upon the will of the star, Zodiark.
Wait. You basically describe summoning Zodiark like you would a primal.
You ask the right questions, because not only is Zodiark a primal, so too is Hydaelyn.
Because Hydaelyn was summoned because there was a contingent opposed to the summoning of Zodiark, and therefore they summoned their own protector, which turned out to be Hydaelyn.
Yes, in order to bind and keep Zodiark in check.
Don't you see? You've been serving a primal the whole time. You are no better than that which you kill.
Yes. And then Y'shtola starts asking the real questions about who the Ascians really are. And he basically says, we are the remnants of that lost age. Mm-hmm. The paragons of the source are the last 3 remaining people who came from the unsundered world. I don't know how they got out of that,
but they did.
They did. And so he leaves us with that to ponder for a while.
Right, which definitely doesn't sit well with Y'shtola and Urianger. Less so the rest of the party, but that's only because there are some things that are just too highbrow.
Yeah, I mean, Thancred's a little bit angry, because he's also an Archon.
Right.
But basically, we deal with that. We say goodbye to Runar for now, because Y'shtola's coming with us from now on.
Right.
And it's a little tearful goodbye, but she'll be back.
Yes.
And we go back to the Crystarium, and before we can go to the next area, Light Wardens are attacking the Crystarium.
Yes, because apparently we've caused a little bit too much chaos. Vothri says, fuck this, we're going to need to go ahead and put them back in their place, and basically orders a massive assault on Lakeland proper, which basically turns into a instance in which we're going up to the Osel Imperative and fending off a bunch of Light Wardens.
And as we're fighting them off, Ardbert is forced to just watch this whole calamitous show.
And he sees all the various mini-struggles of the common man, and it breaks his little heart.
He even tries to fight against it, rushing in to fight a Light Warden, and he just passes right through it.
We also see Lena, who is not only injured, but dejected at her failure as a commander.
Yeah, I gotta admit, Lena's voice acting for that scene was really powerful. She sounded like she was about to cry at the end.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of war trauma at this point in the game, and I think it pulled it off better than Stormblood did, which is saying something because that was Stormblood's entire point.
I know, it's funny what can happen when you have a singular story set.
When you focus on a singular plot point for a story.
Yes,
it's almost like they should have made 2 different stories
for Stormblood.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're past that now. We're in the good shit now.
Yes, so we recover from our wounds. The Exarch pulls everyone together and says, okay, we still need to go ahead and deal with the Light Warden in Amarang.
And Calusia.
I'm going to go deal with Vothri. You guys go deal with I'm going to do Vothri. You go deal with Amarang.
Yeah, because the Exarch was given a summons to meet with Vothri, but
under the auspices of against surrender.
Yeah.
So I said, fine, let me go deal with Vothri. You guys go deal with that. But by this point, they're anticipating an Ilmoran intervention.
Yeah.
So a splitting of the party occurs.
The people who will distract the army will go through the east side of Amarang.
Which we've already explored.
Yeah.
And the rest of the party will go through the west, which we believe where the Light Warden has hidden themselves.
Yes. And also, Miniphilia is going like, I need to go to the place where I last contacted Minphilia.
And it has thought long and hard about what she wants to do.
And she is going to go and see Minphilia and see if she can get the power to locate Light Wardens. So that is our main objective at the moment, is to get Miniphilia to that point.
Yes. I believe it's the closest point to the wall, because that was the entire reason she was able to contact Minphilia.
Yes.
Also, at this point, the reason we need to have that location power is because the Light Warden for Amarang has not been seen in a long-ass time.
It has hidden itself really well, so...
And so that is the reason for doing so. We go through the western side, and we come across a bunch of ghost towns, basically.
A bunch of ghost towns. There's some settlements with the Moor, the kobolds.
The Moor, the kobolds. But we come across a larger, is it twill?
It's twine.
Twine. I knew that it was some kind of cloth. But we come to the village of Twine, where nearby is a massive railroad structure.
Yeah, and the only way to get through the area to get to the palace where Minphilia was is through a very untravelable mountain, and the only way through is through a mine cave that uses a Talos to get through.
Talos being basically
golems.
massive powered golems. Enter Magnus and company.
Yes, Magnus and Company, which you've seen my Dawn Trail group videos.
Yes.
So you've met them.
I've met their reincarnations.
Well, no, you met their source
counterpart, yes.
Yes. You've met their source counterparts, but now you meet the ones that we meet first.
Yes, the originals.
Yes.
So these chucklefucks are basically a bunch of trolley enthusiasts who once basically maintained the trolleys areas. And unfortunately, through no one being around and the unfortunate
collapse of a mine.
Well, collapse of a mine, but more importantly, the collapse of their trolley master, have not been able to go ahead and get the trolleys up and running for some time.
Yes, Magnus, the leader of the trolley group, has basically been a fucking drunk for the past couple of years.
A depressive alcoholic ever since his wife passed.
Yes. And so we try to find a way to lift his spirits by also finding a way to revive the golem.
Yes, which requires basically mining a very rare conductive ether stone.
Yes.
Which requires some intervention, which requires some help with Thancred in order to locate.
Yes, and so we go through the mines, we find the gemstone, and we find a bunch of rocks that need to be identified to be the gemstone.
Yes.
And the person identifying the gemstone finds the right one, but also that he finds something written on it.
It turns out that Magnus's former wife, Adna, did find the stone, but was unable to send it up to her husband, and therefore inscribed a last message onto it as she died in the mine.
And so we bring it to Magnus. He really doesn't know what to do with this information, so much so that when we revive the Talos, he breaks down and starts hitting the thing, wondering why she died for this thing, which actually sends Minfilia spiraling and running away for a moment.
Right, because all of this has been triggering her own PTSD and is making her doubt herself, even at this point.
Yes.
It's also giving Thancred his own sort of, is this what I look like moment?
Yes. And so, even though this is the point where Thancred should go to Minfilia and comfort her. Instead, the other dad comes in as Urianger offers his condolences, and he talks about how he let a dear friend die. He had to keep secrets. And
opening up his own trauma with Mo and Britta, as well as his consultation with the Warriors of Darkness in their original interaction.
Yes.
However, in doing so, at least Minfilia is able to calm herself down. Magnus begins the process of sobering up and states that the men of the Daedalus Ironworks will go ahead.
Daedalus
Stoneworks will go ahead and assist the Warriors of Dark on their plan.
Right.
Enter this instance.
We make our way through the tunnel.
Only for it's Ranjit standing on the other side and derails a fucking minecart by himself.
Yep. And then it is at first it looks like we're going to confront him, but Thancred intercedes and says, "Go, I will stop him here."
And which you basically have an instance in which you play as Thancred dueling against Ranjit. I will say I forgot to mention one key point. In anticipation of a big fight, Minfilia recharges a bunch of Thancred's Aether cartridges, as a normal gunbreaker would be able to do that himself.
However, she is basically his ammo silo.
Because of the prior interaction with the flow spell, Thancred's own ether current has been disrupted. He can't go ahead and do that.
So not only does Minfilia give him his normal rounds of bullets, he gives her a special bullet. The first bullet he gave her that she has been constantly infusing over and over again to the point of hypercritical energy.
I think that she said that was her starting cartridge. She basically trained off of that cartridge in order to learn how to do the process herself.
Yes.
But she still kept using that cartridge over and over, and eventually turns it over to him prior to this fight.
Yes, which is a symbol of her trust in him to do the job. And basically, this fight is fucking nuts. It is a war of attrition.
It basically boils down to, once all the initial introduction where you see some of his attack patterns begins, the real fight is he has a super critical limit break to where Thancred uses his stealth ability.
Which, I should tell you, his stealth ability involves him turning off his ether, stopping his heart, and becoming invisible.
I'm pretty sure if he... because that's how, basically, how the hide ability works for thieves. However, because his ether is disrupted, he can't use his ether to keep him alive. So that's why the heart stop occurs.
Yes.
He can do it, but doing so puts a strain on him. And as we see throughout the fight, he uses it to reposition himself and be able to use his to use his best attacks on Ranjit. However, repeated wear and tear, along with Ranjit's observant eye, means that the trick eventually fails.
And so, when he tries to do it and it fails, he does a last-ditch desperate move. He shuts down everything about his ether to the point of nigh invisibility. Even Ranjit can't see where he is.
And then he uses the clip from Miniphilia in order to be able to go ahead and land the finishing shot on Ranjit.
Yes. I should also mention there's an interesting dialogue between Thancred and Ranjit, because it turns out Ranjit has been the one, since he was a young man, who has been training and raising all the Minphilias of the past. He is attached to all of them. He sees them all as the same one.
And more as his daughters. And he has basically... Part of the reason he even joined up, basically has agreed to become Vothri's lapdog, is because he does not want to see Minphilia constantly die.
Yes.
And a lot of the Ilmorans, as we've sort of interacted, basically are in denial about the state of the world, and basically want a status quo, if only because they are tired of the suffering.
Indeed. And so we see a fight between two dads. A possessive dad and a dad that wants her to live her own life. Because after the fight, Ranjit flees for now, and Thancred collapses on the ground, and a lot of people thought Thancred was going to die here.
Yes.
Yeah, but he basically collapses on the ground, and he said he whisks about how much you've grown, how much I've done, how much all this has happened.
All these praises for Miniphilia, which he should have said to her.
Yes.
But drama and angst and all that jazz.
Yes. Meanwhile, we make the Warrior of Darkness, aka us, and Miniphilia make it to the ruins.
We make it to the point where Minphilia stopped the flood, and Miniphilia is able to have her heart-to-heart conversation.
We end up getting a last chance to talk to Minphilia. We say it's good to meet you. And Miniphilia is going on about how she wants to do this, how she wants to be the one to stop this. And Minphilia smiles and offers herself to her. Mm-hmm. And so, what do you think of this?
So, I think this is a very interesting point throughout sort of the entirety of Minphilia's... This is the end of Minphilia's storyline as we know it.
And this is the start of something new.
Right. And so, the biggest thing is that when Minphilia is initially introduced, very much I believe the phrase that was used was white woman savior syndrome.
Yes.
Because of the fact that Minphilia played basically the role of Louis Soix for the Scions in The Realm Reborn. And aside from maybe a few moments in which she became possessed by Hydaelyn, or the avatar of Hydaelyn, we really didn't get to see too much of her actions. But what we actually see through Minphilia's dialogue is that she is not only just a vessel of healing, but she is also what I guess the embodiment of self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I think that's what her role in this story is, in comparison to all the other players, in terms of their roles to the story. And Minphilia sort of concludes that here, not just by interceding on our behalf multiple times in and out of combat, but now passing her mantle on to the next generation and giving Miniphilia her own identity, and by bequeathing her all of her Latin powers.
Yeah.
And so Minphilia is gone. Miniphilia wakes up. When Miniphilia originally had blonde hair, blue eyes, Miniphilia now has almost a strawberry red hair.
Yeah, she has a strawberry red hair. She still has blue eyes, but they aren't the glazed glass over eyes of Minphilia from the past.
These are more deep. These are more living.
Yeah, these are more natural.
And so everyone meets back at the
at these ruins nearby.
Meets at nearby ruins. They go ahead and go back to find whatever happened to Thancred.
Yeah, Thancred is currently being nursed by Urianger and Y'shtola.
And it comes to the conversation of, well, you're no longer Minfilia. What do we call you?
And to which Thancred names her Reen, which means blessing in Fae.
Mm-hmm.
To which Urianger is going, wait, you actually listened to my lectures on that shit?
Yes. And Reen happily accepts her new name. And now having the ability to basically sense the Light Wardens, is able to guide us deeper into the Amarang Desert, and we find the next Light Warden
in Malika's Well. Which I'm not a big fan of this dungeon, but I do love the final boss.
I do like this dungeon. I think that I love the second mini boss so much. Mr. Clean is such a fun fight.
Oh, Mr. Clean. Yeah.
So you have this Talos Talos is apparently not waterproof.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And this one was an attempt to do it by putting buckets on its hands, feet, and head.
Yeah.
And therefore has the ability to use a bunch of water attacks.
It literally drills for wells.
With a Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann style attack to do so.
Yeah.
Because that is a wide ass range. You have to get out of there to avoid that.
Yeah, I've actually learned how the timing for getting out and then as a tank zipping back in, to which you then get knocked back out and zip back in.
To avoid getting blasted, which you can shortcut at least on one of the rotations with an arm's length application.
First boss I'm not a big fan of. It's an armadillo and it causes a lot of random chaos.
Lots of dropping stones. It brings adds to the fight. I can see why it's not the favorite. Plus, it doesn't signal its AoE swipe. You have to sort of intuit that.
Yeah, as soon as it does the stack marker, it drops an iron ball, and then it's going to immediately swing around, so you need to just get out.
And then we go deeper and deeper into the well, which, by the way, apparently prior to its abandonment, it was going to be not just a gladiator arena, but also a shopping, basically a royal resort for the area. It was basically like, imagine the Colosseum, but we're basically inverting the Tower of Pisa.
Yeah, it's basically this world's version of Halatali.
Yeah, it is.
Which is kind of funny to think about because it is a much better dungeon.
It is, but the hindsight of ARR versus Shadowbringers.
Yeah, but anyway, the final boss is, oh look, biblically accurate angel.
Yes.
Storage.
Storage, yes. I forgot what storage is,
in Latin?
Yes, what its translation is. Give me one. Greek word for familial love.
Oh, familial love.
Yes. So, affection for one's family, which is fitting considering we just resolved the family drama arc.
Yeah, pretty much. And this one's a bit interesting. It has two major moves. It has a big plus sign attack, and it has a move where you got to get into it. Its gimmick is it'll drop 4 crystal nails, and then it will then do its signature move, and then each of those nails will then
repeat either that move or the other move.
Yes.
It will switch. By the way, I just want to go back because I just realized this. Who was the one who turned into a Sin Eater when we went to Holminster Switch?
Tesleen?
Tesleen. Which reflects with Alice.
Yeah.
Friendship. That is agape.
Ah.
What is the main conflict with Y'shtola? Runar's love, Eros.
Yes.
We now have resolved the family tie issue with Thancred, Urianger, and Reen. Storage, familial love.
Wow, I did not even realize that. That is kind of... God, the writing... Theming, and this expansion is so fucking good. So fucking good.
So, but yes, Storage is definitely a wild fight. Very fun.
And I hate the raid-wide move it does because of the name, Intestinal Crank.
Yes, because you just think... you're just thinking testicular torsion, aren't you?
No, what I'm imagining is a hook into the guts and being ranked up. I'm thinking of Higurashi.
Oh, there you go.
I'm thinking of Higurashi when they talk about that.
So it's at this point that we become like, okay, I think I've had a little too much light ether.
Yeah, I'm starting to hurt. Ow, it's starting to hurt.
And people are becoming concerned, or at least the party is becoming concerned about the Warrior of Light's fortitude when it comes to dealing with these light eaters, or sin eaters. However, Ardbert is at least becoming a little bit more happy seeing that you've actually been able to make people feel better about the situation.
I think it's around this time that he tries to reach out for you when you're having an episode, and some light shines when we touch, and it kind of helps alleviate the pain.
Yes, although it's not entirely clear why yet.
No. But anyway, we go back to the Crystarium, and basically Emet-Selch goes on a little tirade of how Hydaelyn basically did everything. How her ability is to sunder and separate, as well as cause stasis and passivity. So basically, she could not defeat Zodiark normally. She had to split him into 10 and 3 shards. 10 and 3 shards along with the source.
Which basically implies the 6 crystals, the 3 masks of the, or the 3 ranks of the...
No, it's just 10 and 3. She made 14 shards.
Oh, okay.
There's 14 worlds.
Oh, okay.
And basically, over time, each calamity that has happened, the calamity of fire, the calamity of water, the calamity of lightning, has all been each another world being sundered, that had been sundered, has been brought back into the source. The people of the source are 7 times rejoined people. And Emet-Selch is wanting to bring them all back together to bring back the people, the true people of the world. And at this point he says, I do not technically consider you to be alive, ergo I will not be guilty of murder if I kill you.
Because he basically doesn't see, because we are descendants of what came after.
We are descendants of what came after. We are half-men, as he likes to call.
Right.
But basically he explains that, and then we get a report that the people of Yulmore are acting very weird.
So, we go back. So, one of the things I will say, I don't consider it a critique, but it is an unusual point. More so than in other DLCs, usually when there's an issue or when there's a struggle, it usually isn't this horror themed. Because when we encounter the citizens of Yulmore or citizens of Calusia going amok, it's very much like they're under the influence of like the zombie virus.
Yeah.
Like very early, like rage, like think World War Z type zombies.
Yeah, rage virus.
So we have to incapacitate these people, and then as the other scions are basically going around knocking people out, it's like, hey, wait, all these people came from Gate Town.
Yes.
And why aren't you going it? Oh, because I don't go to Gate Town.
Yeah.
And so through quick minor investigation, it's found that, one, the only people who are getting crazy are people who eat mule, who usually are the outskirts of Gate Town.
Yeah.
And then,
2,
Reen freaks the fuck out because she's attacking a bunch of Sin Eater resident in Mule.
So basically, Meal is Sin Eater.
Well, not just that. We also find out that despite there being a constant inflow of people,
no one comes out.
And in addition, despite Vothri's control over Sin Eaters, no one sees additionally Sin Eaters outside of the 2 pets that he mainly keeps in his own bedchamber.
So basically,
where are all the fucking Sin Eaters going?
They've all been ascended, churned into meal,
and then fed to the public to basically turn them into an impromptu army if Vothri needs it.
Which is fucked up. Did I mention Ishikawa wrote this expansion?
Yes. I think you mentioned it to me off camera, but this is the first time you're mentioning it on camera.
Yeah, Ishikawa, the one who wrote the Dark Knight questline, wrote this.
Yes, so...
She also wrote Endwalker, too, I'll tell you.
She definitely was channeling her Junji Ito on this one, because boy howdy.
Oh yeah, it's kind of fucked up.
I believe I remember my exact wording was, we're not just dealing with a death cult, which is what I initially called them, we're dealing with a cannibal death cult. Oh, it's good at least they're borrowing from the Catholics.
10 out of 10, sir. Good job.
Thank you. I figured you'd appreciate that joke. Look transubstantiation up if you don't believe me.
Yeah, body and blood of Christ. What do you think that means?
We are literal on that one.
Yeah.
So this leads into an instance in which the Scions basically siege Yulmore. Everyone branching off to deal with the various Krayt citizens, while we run up the tower and make our way, stopped by Ranjit, who's finally had enough.
And which we finally put the old man to fucking rest.
But he's not fighting in his normal style, no. He absorbs Gukumats and takes out a fucking scythe.
Yeah, this was a Proto-Reaper build.
Which I immediately pointed out to and I thought was a very interesting call out.
Yeah.
So, Ranjit uses, I think, a different moveset at this point, but it still has a couple of the similar moves that we're used to. He's not much of a threat at this point, and you're actually allowed to take him down proper at this point.
Yeah, he dies. He gets his send-off.
He gets his death monologue. The Scions rush in. We're going to go confront Vothri,
who is currently eating a whole bunch of meal, and then Reen freaks the fuck out. Because it's not a man, it's a sin-eater. And then he turns his head around. 180.
180 style is like, oh fuck. And then he begins to cry out in pain as it's revealed that he has a second face on his stomach, and he sprouts out little fucking cherub wings like the fat fuck he is.
And then while we're all reeling from the headache of his scream, he flies off to Mount Gulg, rips it out of the ground, and makes it his new base of operations.
Well, that's going to be interesting to reach.
Yeah, because we can't take any of the Yulmuran airships because there are Sin Eaters abundant.
So we need a ground-based way to get up to where the peak of Mount Gulg was.
The first step is to get to the upper reaches of Calusia, and the only way is the ladder.
A long-forgotten mechanical lift, which requires us to go ahead and entreat which requires us to get the assistance of the Ilmorans, which Alphino makes his re-debut, basically gives them a scolding to.
Yeah.
Because despite the fact that everyone was under control of Vothri, that was only just now. Everything else that happened beforehand was of their own malice and greed.
Yeah.
And gives them a proper
finger wag.
Proper finger wagging, yes. And basically a lot of them sober up and realize they need to go ahead and amend their ways.
Yeah. And it turns out that the only way to activate the ladder is to use Talos, to which Dulia Chai goes, "Talos? Oh, honey, you're the heir of Daedalus Stoneworks. You can help out with this."
To which
Shai
Nuz gets an immediate migraine, and after much prodding from his wife says, "Fine, let me go take a look at it."
Yes.
And which we basically are able to get the ladder up and going fairly easily.
To which, while we're getting it up and running, Emet-Selch once again interrupts to talk wistfully about the past. Talking about the great city of Amarot. And how it gleamed gently. Not that you would remember.
Right.
Why would we remember?
Again,
he is laying it on thick that he knew us.
Right, in some capacity. Needless to say, we go ahead and get up to Mount Gulg. We reach the upper Calusian shelf, finding out that there are a few survivors up here, apparently. The main settlement is Tomra to the northeast, which is a dwarven camp, which we'll get to later. But to the southeast, there is a living mortal settlement
where a whole bunch of people that were abandoned by Yulmore or thrown out had made a refuge,
including the painter that we once pulled out of the ocean. Managed to get his way up there.
Yep. And so Chai Nuz and Dulia Chai have to confront him and basically apologize.
Well, it's basically, after some scouting, it's initially determined that, yeah, we're going to need something big. If we're going to climb up there, we need something big to hold it in place for us to be able to get up there. To which the idea of a giant Talos comes to mind. And
at first, Chai Nuz says, "Wait, that's fucking ridiculous." But then he starts muttering, saying, "Wait, with the proper connections and the proper..."
We would basically need to get a bunch of we would basically need to be able to rely on the people. We would need a massive workforce. It's like we'd have to get the entire continent, the entire nation of Lakeland to assist us. We would need magical know-how, like getting an entire group of people from
the Knight's Blast.
The Knight's Blast who have access to that kind of magics. No, but then you still need to go ahead and get additional support. Like you need an entire army of fairies to deal with the Sin Eaters while we're going up there, and that still means that you have to mine the raw materials if you only had access to Amarang. Wait, why is there a giant ass crowd forming around me?
Yeah, so basically, we got everyone in Ballynorefront
to go ahead and help build this giant thing. But unfortunately, our poor master engineer is suffering some performance anxiety.
So we have to basically do a dating sim.
We have to do a minor dating sim to lift Chai Nuz's spirits to be able to give him the confidence to continue this endeavor.
So he starts building out the plans, and he basically says, we're going to need a very big Heartstone.
Which the only ones who would be able to get that around here would be the dwarfs.
So we make our way up to the dwarves, which we are also accompanied by the Crystal Exarch on this endeavor.
Who basically agrees to be our ambassador, as he's also had some encounters with dwarves as well. We meet the current dwarven chieftain, who basically encounters his youngest... First, we have to do a shooting game in order to earn the dwarves' trust.
Yeah, basically say, look for the ones with the wrong helm.
Yes, as there are... the allianced dwarven clan uses horned helms, while the enemy dwarven clan uses headscarves.
Turbans.
Turbans. Oh boy, that's a little bit awkward considering the white power we had earlier.
Yeah.
But anyway, we go ahead and we pass the quest, and we go out adventuring with the Crystal Exarch and the chieftain's son, who is basically, while a poor fighter, an excellent miner.
So we basically have to guide the miner to the mines.
Which leads to an instance in which basically we work with the Crystal Exarch to fend off a bunch of Sin Eaters along the way. And wait, why are we listening to the Crystal Tower theme here?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So you go through that instance, you get some support dealing with the last bit of Sin Eaters, and you make it to the enemy dwarven camp, to which you basically have to stealth your way to harvest the necessary materials while...
also putting some of the other dwarves to sleep.
Well, you put the other dwarves to sleep while the chieftain's son gets the ore for us. We nearly get caught near the end. We blast the enemy chieftain with more sleeping dust to prevent a fight, and then we get back out.
Yeah, we get back out. We make our way back to the encampment where the settlers were, and while everything is currently being put together, the Crystal Exarch seems to have disappeared for a second.
So we go out, we find him, and we have a little chin waggle with him. He asks us, things are coming to a close, it seems.
What are your next plans?
And you get to talk with him a little bit, and he reminisces about an old friend that he had, someone who he admired and looked up to. And despite him admitting that at least at some point he was sealed away for 200 years, the only thing that he would ever want is to be able to go on an adventure with that friend once more.
Gee, I wonder who it could be.
Right. And then at which point do we get an echo, or does he get an echo?
No, a while back ago, we had gotten an echo of someone looking at the Heaven's Ward the journal of Count Edmund. And
while a siege is going on.
Yes, and a guy who looks a lot like Biggs comes in wearing Nero's glasses. Mm-hmm. Basically talks about how, God, I love that story as a kid.
And basically tells us tells the reader, we have to get out of here now.
Yeah.
And basically the person we're looking is from pockets the memoirs of Count Fortin and basically books it.
Yes. And so we wonder if that was an echo from the past or the future.
And it's still undetermined either way. However, as we're finishing our conversation with the Crystal Exarch, he nearly collapses.
Yes, because he's been too far away from the tower. He is literally bound to that tower. His life is forever that tower.
Right. And so we managed to go ahead and get him back up on his knees, get him over back to the Crystal Tower, and we get to watch the Talos activate grab onto the top of Mount Gulg while Sin Eaters are attacking from all sides. A Fey battle fleet passes overhead to do combat with them, and thus begins the race up Mount Gulg.
Which is the second to last dungeon. So, Mount Gulg.
Oh man, this one was fantastic. So,
yeah.
so your mini bosses are your first boss is the Lion Sin Eater. I think it's Pride.
Yeah. I forget what it's called.
It's either Pride or Ambition, but you deal with that Sin Eater who has some
wind and laser attacks, as well as circular explosions that come out. Yeah, I feel like it needs another move.
It needs one more move, I agree.
Yeah, but before we even get to the lion, we have to go up the giant's arm. As we are fighting it, its other arm is swatting away Sin Eaters. It is fucking cool.
Yes, we get blocked by basically holy incarnations of the demon wall.
Yeah, and as we're going up, the female Sin Eater that's always by Vothri's side keeps trying to fire off laser attacks at us. So we keep going up, and as we make the turn past the demon walls, we see that the entirety of Mount Gulg is being enshrined in white ether pillars. Marble pillars of sorts.
Yes. And then we come to our second mini-boss, the Rubik's Cube.
Rubik's Cube. Forgiven Whimsy.
Forgiven Whimsy. The fact that whimsy is considered a sin in this world is truly the most horrifying of thoughts.
Yeah.
But basically this one is dodging lasers and avoiding AoEs with a very tight positioning, I feel.
Oh yeah, it is very tight, because when it changes its shape, you gotta figure out which faces are on the thing and correlate them to the squares on the floor. There are lines on the floor, people.
Yes, and the way that it does its AoEs leaves you basically 4 corners, 2 of which will usually have lasers coming out of it anyway.
Yeah, and then a circular AoE will pop up, which has a donut, so you have to get into a tiny little corner to make sure you don't get hit by anything else.
Right.
It is intense. That took me a while to figure out.
It is quite a tight fix. There's also a copy of that one mini boss from the Vermilion Climb.
You mean the not the Jade Stone. I forget what it is, but
the Sparrow's one.
The Swallow's Compass.
Swallow's Compass. There you go.
Thank you. My brain dirt.
It's basically a smaller copy of that giant from the Swallow's Compass.
It's recalled Forgiven Revelry.
There you go. So you have that one fight, and then you confront Vothri's main squeeze, the side piece angel that's been with him the entire fucking time.
Forgiven Obscenity.
Yeah, that's about fucking right.
Yeah, and so I should mention that on that last leg of the dungeon, Vothri basically buffs all the enemies. And here's the thing, there is no stopping you if you want. You can keep going to the end. But god damn it, is that crazy.
It is a very tight pull, and I think that's, if you try to do an end-to-end on that one, it is going to punish you.
Oh yeah, I ended up, as a healer, going through that. The tank would not stop. I was screaming, stop, stop, stop.
A reminder that Rei'tan does not do voice chat if he does it with randos, so he is screaming at the blank screen on this one.
Yeah, I'm screaming at it, and I can't type stop because my keyboard will sometimes disconnect.
Yes.
And so basically, he just pulled everything. I was just spamming holy the entire time, trying to keep him alive. The Dark Knight died.
Of course.
We still managed to win, but he was dead on the floor.
Yes. So Forgiven Obscenity has a bunch of laser attacks, which basically will come in delayed straights, as well as using clones to go ahead and obscure when she's targetable.
Yes, she will also then receive a power-up from Vothri, and so when she does her circular AoE, several rings will appear out and beyond it, so you gotta... The best way to do it is just basically stay right next to the first ring.
It's a glorified diamond, but there's a 5th ring which shoots out and is supposed to be sort of the indicator of, hey, this is where you actually won't get hit.
Yeah.
So it can be used as a guidepost if you need additional help. There was a couple of times where we would run that dungeon. I would not move because I was too far into my cycle, and I just still managed to avoid it by sheer dumb luck.
Yeah, and then you would also face roll it just as much.
Sometimes, but I've never fallen on that one, so I'm okay with that.
But we take care of that dungeon, and then Vothri starts monologuing to us with too much of an echo.
Oh, we forgot to mention, I shall have my vengeance!
I am righteousness!
There you go. The delivery on that voice line is meant to be serious, but it's so absurd that we have just memed the hell out of it.
All I just hear is a whiny baby saying, I am righteousness!
Yes, that's basically what he is. As we go into
the second trial, the Crown of the Immaculate. We are fighting Vothri.
Well, at the start. We start with a fight with Fat Man Vothri,
who just keeps summoning ads to try to slow us down. But as we fight him, something seems wrong. His back splits open and a blade shoots out. Then another blade. Then another blade. And he is screaming in pain until we all get knocked back and he just starts undulating.
And he basically metamorphizes into his true
form, innocence.
Light Warden form.
He is transformed into innocence.
Which is probably the only one that breaks the love formula.
Yeah, pretty much. But, oh no, he's hot!
Yes, Vothri's face clone reclaims the body because he says, fuck this, you're doing a wrong job, here, give me the controller.
Yeah.
Literally said it's my turn on the Xbox and takes over his brother's body.
Yeah.
But yes, in addition to, I believe my reaction to this was Griffith!
Yeah, because he fucking looks like it.
So,
but I've seen multiple, oh no, he's hot, handsome Squidward.
Yep.
And now Griffith.
Yes. Needless to say, he gets much more intense. He does these wave attacks with his lasers that require you to be constantly dodging the waves. He does beams going separate directions.
He will fire off swords, which will then turn around and then fire back out in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
There will then be an ad phase where you have to take care of the Sin Eaters around him that are charging him up. And then when he does his ultimate move, he just summons a massive amount of swords and just stabs you with them. Which is pretty cool.
No reality break, though.
No, he does not do the reality break that Thorin did.
Yes.
I don't think anyone's done that reality break.
Did we not have that when we fought Zenos Shinryu? Or Zelos Shinryu?
Zenos Shinryu? I don't remember if we did. All I remember is that he broke the...
I know we've seen it twice. I just don't remember where the second one was. But Regardless, we managed to go ahead and take down Innocence. That one was a fairly difficult fight. I remember wiping near the end on my first try.
Yeah, there was a few deaths because we actually got a few newbies in that one.
Right, but I think that one wasn't too bad. I think I did do 2 or 3 afterwards for grinding reasons, and those weren't as bad.
Yeah, but we beat him. We take in his light, and as we're taking in his light, we get a vision of how Vothri came to be.
So basically, Emet-Selch came to a young Calusian couple and basically said, your child is going to be the gifted one. Let me have a go with him.
Yes.
And so he
basically takes a light warden and puts it into the baby.
Did Emet-Selch just make Jesus?
In a sense, he did. A very twisted version of Jesus.
Yeah, no shit. But anyway, theological debates aside, we basically see that Emet-Selch's negotiations with Vothri's parents yielded the way to Yulmore becoming the city of grandeur and delusion that it is today.
Who will then guide the world to indolence and passivity, which will bring about the rejoining.
Right. And so, backstory clarified, we start to go ahead and get really sick off of the light energy.
We are literally spitting up white light like Tesleen did.
And, oh no, he's becoming a Sin Eater.
To which comes in the Crystal Exarch to say, you have fallen for my trap. I will claim the light as my own and travel to other worlds. Who would live on a dying world like this?
Yes, so the original plan for the Exarch was to basically have us go around killing the Light Wardens, getting all the ether stored up in us to which the Crystal Exarch would take that burden upon himself and then basically explode from the overwhelming amount of ether. And then
by traveling to the space between spaces and dying.
Right.
That's actually his plan, because Urianger stops everyone from trying to stop the Crystal Exarch from what he's doing.
Right. Except for the fact that then Emet-Selch comes out, shoots the Crystal Exarch.
I should mention first that before Emet-Selch shoots him, the cape flies off and we see who the Crystal Exarch really is.
Grahatiya.
Which...
Who was trapped in the Crystal Tower for 200 plus years and only awoke fairly recently.
And apparently has traveled between space and time to this point to do this, basically. And, God... Okay, I gotta be honest. How obvious was it that it was Graha?
I mean, so I will admit this point was spoiled for me prior. I kept the facade up naturally. Also, I believe there's one of the... When you first meet the Crystal Exarch, there is a dialogue option that says, wait, you look familiar, don't you? In which the Crystal Exarch, let's put that aside for now.
Yeah.
And literally blows you off from making that point.
Did you see a Grahatiya in this tower?
Yes.
Yeah.
We asked him about if you saw Grahatiya, because this is supposed to be the Crystal Tower from our dimension.
Yeah.
Or connected to it at the very least, so we wonder about Grahatiya. Needless to say, I did select the option where you call out Grahatiya by name.
Yeah.
And that obviously choked up the Catboy a little.
Yeah.
And so that tearful union gets smited to the ground by Emet-Selch, shoots Grahatiya to prevent him from finishing the spell.
By the way, I fucking love this. All-powerful mage, Ascian, fights with a gun.
Yeah, just... Why waste the time? There's no point to it.
Why waste the magic?
Why waste the magic? Exactly.
By the way, have you seen Benny G's...
Yes, I've seen the Benny G, gun fixating. I forgot to load the thing. Why won't it fire? Just conks him with the gun at the end, and then goes ahead and starts his monologue.
Yeah.
Yes, that skit is fantastic. Also, Reen getting popcorn as with Thancred while they're watching it all go down.
Yeah.
Just absolute memetry.
But yeah.
Anyway, Emet-Selch monologues, you are literally becoming a scene eater, which is what I wanted. I want you to be the thing that goes ahead and kills this world and allows me to go ahead and continue my plan.
But also, he did secretly want you to survive because he wanted to see if mankind had progressed far enough to be worth saving and having a discussion of trying to reunify the world.
Honestly, not impressed.
Honestly, not impressed?
That's Emet-Selch's reaction.
Yeah, honestly, not impressed. You failed my expectations, so you're becoming a sin eater. I'm taking the Catboy, fucking off. Find me in the Tempest if you want to die with dignity.
Right. And so that happens. Reen uses her Oracle of Light powers to suppress the light within us, at least keeping us stable for the time being.
But because we are so full of light and we cannot control it, light has returned to all of Norvrant.
So we're stuck in the temporal daylight again until we're able to resolve things.
Yeah. Basically, we're back to square one.
General concern and fear from the general masses as we're trying to recover from this leads us to having an existential crisis, because basically it's either submit to Emet-Selch's plans or die and become the very thing we tried to destroy.
To which we try to clear our heads, go to the top of a tower, to which we talk with Ardbert.
We have a talk with Ardbert, who basically gives us some consolation. We have a talk with Feo-Ul, who also comes to give us their condolences and offers, hey, you ever want a way out, you can take the mantle of Titania back.
Yeah.
You'll be stuck that way, but you won't have to worry about shit getting worse. To which we basically say, yeah, that's not happening.
That's not happening. To which she also says, your friend...
The Crystal Exarch, I don't know much about him, but there must be a reason for this.
There must be a reason for him. Talk to his flowers in his garden. I love the way she said that.
And so Feo-Ul encourages us to reach out to the people, leading us back to Captain Lena? Lena, who basically says that prior to the Exarch going up to help with everything, was given specific instructions that should we ever need it,
I've got a key to the umbilicus.
See the umbilicus, which is basically the most inner sanctum within the Crystal Tower, and that only we should use it if anything happens to him.
To which we take the key, we go into the ocular, we go into the umbilicus, and we have another echo vision.
So this echo vision is shortly after Urian J gets warped into the first, and he has a talk with the Crystal Exarch, who basically explains his whole plan from the start.
To which he asks Urian J to help because he is aware of his penchant for secrecy.
Yes. To which Urian J's like, God damn it, not again.
Not again.
And
why would you do this to me?
Right.
Poor Urian J. Just because he has one of those faces.
Yes. Well, to be fair, it was the glasses that didn't help.
Yeah.
I think that's why he got rid of them. Like, that is the reason people keep trying to think I'm a shady drug dealer for some reason.
Yeah.
Needless to say, he is forced to secrecy because he basically reveals, without going into too much detail,
that Grahatia came from the future where the 8th Umbral Calamity actually happened.
And in that world, everything went according to the Ashian's plan. Hero of Light died. Black Rose went off without a hitch. The trigger reaction with with the overwhelming light ether occurred, causing massive chaos. However, people were so inspired by the actions that occurred in Heaven's Ward and Stormblood, which canonically occurred, that the Ironworks still continued to get people to go ahead and try and time travel, because they basically determined between Alexander's ability to manipulate time and Omega's ability to control space that theoretically combining the two powers, you would be able to do both and therefore travel worlds. However, the technology was not at the point at which they would be able to do this easily. It took multiple generations of Ironworks families, which is basically why you saw those similar versions of Biggs and Wedge trying to help Grahatia out.
Yeah, my thought is that Biggs is basically Nero's student in a way.
Yes,
because he's got the glasses.
Right.
But anyway, it basically confirms that echo we had was of the past, but of the Exarch's past.
The Exarch, we were seeing his memories,
and so they eventually managed to get so technologically advanced now that they could open the Crystal Tower and obtain the power within it. Because it is basically a giant living battery that would basically allow them to do their job.
So they basically sent Grahatia back into the past on the first, got him set up to go into the tower, and then he had to be in hibernation for 200 years. No.
Basically, once he was awoken 200 years later...
once he was awoken 200 years later...
He basically offered himself to go back into time because he admired the Warrior of Light so much. So he went back in time. They missed their mark by about 100 years.
Right.
And so Grahatia is basically like, well, I'm going to fuse myself with this tower so I can make sure this plan goes off without a hitch in the future.
Which leads to everything going on the way that it did.
Yes. So we now know Grahatia's resolve, and we cannot let that stand. We cannot let Emmet do what he wants with Graha.
So we're still going to find a way to deal with it, which means confronting Emet-Selch.
We try to go get Inamaro to go to the Tempest, in which all our friends join up.
At this point, basically, everyone's shaking down Urian J for all he's worth. He spilled the beans, and basically everyone is already caught up to where we are, and basically says, we're not letting you do this alone, you fucking numpty.
Yeah, and Urian J prostrates himself before us, and we're like, enough with the secrets, let's just do this.
Right. To which basically Urian J says, I have a plan. We need to go to the south of Lakeland and go to this specific island.
To which that island, if you've actually looked out on it, looks oddly, weirdly shaped.
Well, you go underwater and you see it has eyes and gills, it looks like.
It has eyes and a tail.
And eventually it basically is revealed that this is the incarnation of Bismarck, except he is an island disguised as a whale instead of being a whale that lives in the sky.
Yes, and he is actually a fae in this world.
To which Urian J tries to negotiate with the sleepy whale. He says, fuck off, I'm too tired. To which we call upon Fael Ul for aid. Bismarck can't ignore an order from the king, and basically says, all right, everyone grab onto something tight. We're going underwater. Wait, what?
To which
we get this is probably one of the funniest moments in the entire fucking expansion, in which we have a cutaway all the way back to Calusia to the shore close to
the logging station.
To the logging station, in which a bunch of people are having chatter about the light situation. It's like, hey, do you hear that?
Yeah. Well, first off, they're saying, did you see that talus rise up in the air? I don't think I'll see anything as amazing in my life if I live to be 100. Cue the fucking sky whale diving into the ocean
and causing a massive surge wave that it nearly takes out the pier.
Yeah.
To which everyone panics, and it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, and basically word gets around that they think the Warrior of Darkness is up to something.
To which gives the people hope once again.
Bismarck uses his air bubbles to basically blast away the ocean to basically allow us to explore the Tempest.
Which is the ocean floor and our final area in the expansion.
Yes, which would be the Indigo Deep in the source.
Right. We go towards the Ondo Cups, which is the Ondo settlement in the area, who are all rightly miffed because basically when we cleared out the water, we cleared out the water. It's where they were used to swimming around, they are now being forced to walk.
And they're not good at fighting some of the things on land,
which has caused in a religious, which they basically take as a religious omen, and they basically, when the party encounters them, basically, are you the ones that we're looking for?
Yes, basically they're saying that because not long before you show up, the lights in the ancient ruins to the south light up,
which is cause for concerns to the superstitious Ondo, who kind of creates a little Cthulhu reference.
Yeah, basically they want to shine their own light in their ruins to signal that that their promise to the ancients is true.
But they won't help us until we go ahead and do things for them to confirm that we are who they seek.
So we do a few side quests. Y'shtola ponders at the ancient ruins, wondering if they're actually from the ancient Ascian world, because they are made of a material so hard that even we could not damage them.
Mm-hmm.
Which, keep that in mind for later.
Right. And so it does get confirmed. We also find out that the Ondo had commissioned a human artist to actually go ahead and create
their light,
but they haven't heard from him for a while and ask us to go check on him.
To which we go and find at the bottom of the ocean a dive tower, basically, and in which we meet this world's version of Grinold. Grinold, yeah.
Yes.
Genel. It's not. No. I got them all mixed up.
You got them reversed.
Geralt, Grenold.
Grenold is this version of the world of Geralt.
Yeah, which, if you've done any of the relic weapons, he's very familiar.
Yes. Anyway, he's ashamed and he's in distress because he does not have the inspiration to finish working on the design for them, despite isolating himself down here at the bottom of the ocean, and needs something to give him inspiration in order to finish his project.
Something with a lot of emotion.
Emotion!
Yes. To which, hey, we've got something that we've been doing the entire time.
Only if you've been doing role quests.
Yes.
So, which leads us to the biggest change in Shadowbringers, the role quest system.
Yes. This is the only expansion that requires you complete one of the role quests to completion. You don't have to do all of them. I made Leo do it because I'm a sick fuck.
Because there is actually a story point to doing all of them, and it's actually kind of mandatory in a sense, but not really.
I'm just going to say this right now. If you are playing Final Fantasy XIV and you've gotten this far, do the role quests.
Yeah, it's especially relevant because you get the backstories to the Warriors of Darkness who didn't survive.
Yes.
And so, while all this main stuff with the Light Wardens is going around, there's also a special set of Sin Eaters
called the Cardinal Virtues.
And the Cardinal Virtues are basically notorious because they have taken on the visages of the former Warriors of Darkness.
Yes.
And
or in this world's case, the Warriors of Light.
Right. And so, so there is a big bounty to go ahead and deal with them, and there's lots of people who go ahead and try and hunt them, much to their chagrin. Which leads us to going ahead and meeting 4 individual wannabe Cardinal Virtue Hunters who are colloquially known as sinners.
Yes.
And so each of the role quests corresponds to one of the main roles. You have ranged DPS, physical DPS, tank, and healer.
No, it's ranged and physical are tied into one. You've also got magic DPS,
Okay.
healer, and tank.
Okay.
So in this one, ranged and melee were tied into one. In future ones, ranged and melee will be split.
Okay.
Yeah.
But either way, you have 4 role quests, each of them which are assigned to a certain virtue. You mind if we discuss them in the order I handled them?
Sure. I believe the first one was tank.
Yes. So, so the tank quest line involves following a fellow Dark Knight who watched his beloved get murdered by a Sin Eater, and then him having to put her down himself before going after the Warrior of Light tank,
Yes.
who was a paladin. And so he goes down a path of revenge. We go talk with the Pneumo, who apparently knew the Warrior of Dark during his living stages.
Yeah.
He was once a former knight who is in service to the kingdom of Vobert, who was basically assigned to be the crown princess's personal guard.
Right.
But had left because of shenanigans regarding a plot with the royal mage, the court mage.
Yes. And so it turns out that the court mage ends up cursing the princess to become basically a demon, and the knight ends up having to put her down for her sake. But
he does not harden his heart to not, because he was initially cast out for being too reckless in his youth. He goes and joins Ardbert and his companions. He comes back rushing when the demon plague comes back and becomes an issue. They uncover the plot of the evil court mage, and at the end of it all, he still desires to maintain his virtues of justice.
Yes.
And at the end, we do confront the paladin, and a lot of his moves are inverse because, I'm trying to remember one of them, which is. It basically inverts it from being light and dark.
Yeah.
In terms of your paladin moves, which is a neat trick which is a neat lore detail that I noticed.
That's because I don't do paladin, so that would actually catch your eye more than it would mine.
Yes, I can't remember the explicit details on his attacks, but they're basically named instead of being their light aspected counterparts, they're named with the dark counterpart.
Oh, that's cool.
But anyway, we confront him, we bring him down. And at the end, it's revealed that the cardinal virtue maintains the crystal that they had in life, albeit a bit more dinged up.
Yes.
And at the end, the shade of the virtue speaks like they're speaking to Ardbert, as if they had the last words that they didn't get to say to him.
Which is kind of touching in a way.
Although Ardbert never appears in any of the role quests, it's implied that these are the last things they wanted to say to him, or at least their thoughts on him before they ultimately gave up their life force to defeat the flood.
Yeah. And the one that I ended up doing for when I first did this, I did the melee one, where you team up with Lou Reek, Mikote, to go after Renda Ray, the archer.
And we find out quickly that apparently Renda Ray was a well-known archer who was hunting down a massive
prize, basically.
A massive prize, but this creature not only killed her first set of companions, it also had a terrifying shriek that disabled her excellent senses.
Yeah.
And so, although she eventually did join up with Ardbert and his party, when they traveled across the Raktika Greatward and this prize was back in the vicinity, she thought to try and confront it all by herself.
She had come up with a way to basically stop the roar from bothering her, and so she kept trying to fight it on her own. And eventually, because for each of these ones, you actually do an instance where you have to play as the character.
Right, so when you're actually seeing the confrontation with the Royal Court Mage, you actually play as the Rogadin Paladin, and you are actually doing... similar to character instances like with Hien and Thancred.
Yeah.
You basically play a smaller, reduced rotation of the class, and you deal with the various encounters that arise.
So for that one, you play as Renda Ray, and eventually it looks like you're doing well, but for some reason you're getting overpowered. In comes your entire party. Ardbert, Lamit, the Rogan and Mage, I think his name is Brendan, and Nilebert, as well as another one, an Elysian Dark Knight, an Elysian Knight by the name of Silva.
Yeah, I think she actually has the Gladiator class because she doesn't use any of the Paladin arts.
Yeah.
So it's at least hinted that she only knows Gladiator.
Yeah.
Anyway, the rest of the party backs up
Renda
Ray, and she's able to finally defeat her foe. At the same time, there's a parallel story with Lou Reek being a novice hunter who actually comes from Yulmore and uses his parents' money to try and fund his adventures.
And it eventually turns out that he does not like the way his parents are treating him when he actually wants to go after this, and because his parents are saying you're giving our name a dirty name, you're giving us a bad name,
right? And even to the other hunters, despite his general friendliness, they basically just see him as a rich kid playing pretend, and it really dampens his spirits. And he even doubts your own friendship until his former nursemaid, who was really the only mother figure that he had, basically helps him realize that we are his first real friend, and that he was acting impulsive to try and rush off on his own.
Yeah. So we join together with Lou Reek, and we eventually take on Renda Ray. And when we beat them, we get the crystal, and Renda Ray kind of reminisces on how they were like their true friends. That if it weren't for them, she'd probably be dead too.
And that she ultimately really appreciates their camaraderie.
Yeah. So I believe the next one you did was Lamit.
I actually want to save Lamit for the end because I think that one's the best one to end on. Let's go and jump to the Black Mage.
Okay.
Which is the magic class, which involves actually helping out an archer who initially wants to hunt down the Black Mage.
Yes. Who it turns out that the cardinal virtue is just creating these strange void holes that are sucking people in.
Yes, and it's seemingly to their death because there's no way anyone can survive being in a black hole like that.
Yes. We find one of those black holes, and it turns out because of our echo, we can actually hear something in there.
Right.
Someone is in there, and so we use our magic to guide whatever it is out. And it turns out it's a little boy.
Yes.
A little Elysian boy.
I'm getting the name of Serig is the name of the hunter.
Serig is the name of the hunter, and I forget the name of the kid.
The kid's name, I think, is because it's similar to Nilebert's name.
Well, regardless, we do rescue him.
Yes.
And we bring him back to Mortsuk, and we try to figure out what's going on. He basically reveals to us that he was...
Tainer. So, Tainer basically explains that he remembers a Nilebert.
Yes.
That he was trained with Nilebert in the aspects of magic, and they were both learning how to do portals.
They were both learning how to do portals to basically summon Void Scent.
Well, they were both taken into what they later realized was a cult.
Yeah.
And this cult was trying to basically teach them how to do that.
Not just a normal cult, a eugenics cult.
Because they have been breeding selectively amongst various Elysian families in the hopes of creating one master bloodline.
Yes.
Which Nilebert was also a participant of. Nilebert and Tainer basically were doing these trials together. Tainer was having a bit of performance anxiety, and incidentally got pulled into his own portal.
Yes.
Which is where he ended up being.
For basically 100 years.
Yes, and it turns out that Nilebert initially was trying to find a way to get Tainer out. And that leads down to his memory, in which he's going into an area where basically Ether has been fucked. And that there might be, if he can stop the disturbance, he might be able to find a way to pull Tainer out. In so doing, he runs into Ardbert and his party, who are, I think it's only Ardbert, Lamit, and Silva, I think, at this point.
I believe so.
And so Nilebert basically goes ahead and suggests to the very antisocial Nilebert, we should team up. And he says, fine, but only for this one time.
Yeah.
And basically, they go down. They confront. Is it a giant toad? I think.
I forget what the enemy was.
Yeah, but basically, unlike the other instances, which are basically super long boss encounters, this one is almost like a proper dungeon run.
Yeah.
In which you're basically playing a reduced black mage moveset and dealing with various enemies and doing black mage things. By the time that you beat the boss, it turns out that there was this crystal that was the source of all the tremors and the disruptions. It's the crystal that Nilebert needs to save his friend, but doing so would continue to cause disability in the area and possibly bring the entire cave system on their heads.
Nilebert struggles for a long time before he screams out and crushes the crystal in his hand,
dooming his ability to save Tainer, but saving his newfound friends in the area.
Yes.
And therefore, but Ardbert offers and extends a token of friendship, says we'll find a way to help you out, and Nilebert joins their party as their black mage.
Also obtaining a crystal of light, much like the other Warriors of Light did when they completed their solo mission.
Right. And so, with this insight made, we go ahead and Taylor confirms, yeah, we were part of the same cult. I didn't know that he was trying to go to these extents to save me, but now we have to save him, his memory. And so, one training montage with Tainer later, he's now ready to go ahead and be anti-hold mage for us. And you have a long extended encounter with Nilebert where Tainer tries to disable as many holes as possible before he's overwhelmed and can't do it anymore.
Yeah. And so we fight him, we defeat him. Nilebert is defeated.
Is pacified, and he goes ahead and he thanks Ardbert for the chance at trying to save Tainer, even though that may never have happened.
Which is very bittersweet, because we realize now that these heroes had their own lives, their own adventures. We barely knew them. We saw them as the warriors of darkness.
Right.
But they had their own lives, and it affects the world even now.
Yeah. And so at the end of that one, Sirig goes ahead and offers to partner up with Tainer to give them new purpose in the world as they become a adventure duo.
Which is kind of nice. However, the last one, I feel, is the best one.
If only because of the end outcome.
Yes. For starters, we are teamed up with a dwarf named Gyat.
Now, I would say one of the things that you have to remember about an MMO is that they are very selective about when they shell out for voice material.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time you're basing it on character model in order to determine character identity and how you voice them.
Yeah.
Because when Ray and I hang out and we do this, we often voice act the characters.
Yes.
And so what we've initially assumed is that the dwarves are male because this is a fantasy game. All the dwarves are bearded short folk.
They all will go lally ho
as their formal greeting, and they all have a tradition of refusing to reveal their faces to outsiders. That's why they wear the bucket mask, which give them the almost iconic black mage eyes.
Yes.
Which is the black shadow and then the two glowing eyes for their face.
We then learn that first off, Lamit was a dwarf.
Lamit is a dwarf, but more importantly, she's also an exiled dwarf, because dwarves are not supposed to show their faces to outsiders. And so Lamit at least is presented to us as an exile from the start.
Yes.
Gyat wants to go ahead and basically avenge dwarfness and wants us to help them take out them. And it's kind of difficult to do because Gyat's kind of played off as a joke.
Yes, he's either drunk or flat on his ass from getting his ass beaten by a sin eater.
That's at least how they're presented. We continue to go ahead and track down Lamit, who in her sin eater form has been reviving sin eaters, which is very unusual because sin eaters aren't really alive to begin with.
Yeah. We actually examine a dead sin eater and try to revive it. Since this is the healer quest line, we can't do it.
And it's basically determined that, again, going back to the light discussion we had earlier, because they are beings of stasis, they can't be healed by the normal light magics that we have. there's some sort of secret that Lamit must have learned that let them have this ability. We also see some of Lamit's memories in which she is actually the first one to meet Ardbert, and those two have been the longest together ever since Ardbert started as an adventurer.
Yeah, she literally saved him from dying against a bunch of goblins.
So those two have been together for a very long time, at least if you consider the order of events. It seems like the order is Lamit, Nilebert,
Silva,
Silva, Renda Ray, and then Brennan is sort of the last tank.
Yeah.
In terms of the overall order. So really, Lamit has been there for a long time. We also find out that the dwarves, part of the reason that there were issues with the dwarves is because that, or at least part of Lamit's goal was at some point journeying into the ruins of Ronka and finding some sort of ancient cure for her sister, although for what disease or what affliction is unknown at this point.
So during that whole fight, you are playing as Lamit, healing both Silva and Ardbert and Renda Ray, preventing them from getting doom cast on them, and just helping fight against a really nasty looking enemy.
Yeah. In the end, the party is successful. Lamit recovers the hidden knowledge, and she seemingly goes back to Tamra to go ahead and do what she needs to do. The next time, when we get to this point, Gyot's disposition changes. They actually are sober for the first time in the entire quest line.
Which is kind of shocking.
And we get to see some change in behavior as we go to the dwarven town and basically find out that Lamit was exiled because she had shown her face as a dwarf and had brought in outsiders. But her real crime was associating with exiles, because the dwarven folk were going through a suffering known as stone blight.
Yes.
Basically a sort of petrification curse disease that was slowly taking over a number of the afflicted.
And so she had gone out to search for a cure, and when she came back and healed them, she had actually gone against dwarven law.
The dwarves were already pissed off with her as it was, but now they decreed that the only punishment worthy was full-on exile. The result made Lamit so mad that she didn't even care about the exile, but inspired by her courage to go out and save them, the afflicted dwarves left with her, including her own sister.
All together and left without their helmets, showing their faces to the world.
Now, I think that there aren't that many faceless dwarves out to begin with.
There are practically none in the world at the moment.
And that's at least part of the confusion to some folk of where are all the dwarves then. And that leads to the realization that those dwarves were caught in the flood.
They have turned into sin eaters, and that Lamit, the cardinal virtue version, has been reviving the ones that were originally dwarves.
Because sin eaters, remember, aren't really alive, they have no distinction from one another unless they can see each other's souls.
Yes.
This leads to a sort of conclusion from Gyot, who realizes that she's only healing those who she perceives as helmless dwarves.
To which she, because it turns out Gyot is a girl.
Right, not yet though, but Gyot goes out, picks a bunch of extra helmets, and theorizes that if they helmet the Sin Eaters prior to death, then Lamit will not revive them because she does not recognize them as helmless dwarfs.
Right.
And which the same theory, they managed to take out all of her ad support, but Lamit is somehow able to revive herself with her own magic, thus leading Gyot to do the only thing that they can possibly do: use their own helmet to stop Lamit from reviving herself, leading to the reveal that Gyot is actually a girl, and sacrificing her own helmet and by her own extension the dignity of a dwarf in order to go ahead and down Lamit for good.
Which means that they can finally take her down for good.
Right. It's at this point that Lamit has her confession to Ardbert. And I say confession because she outright admits that she's in love with the man.
Yeah. Poor girl. She loved him from the start, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's really tragic. And even Gyot tries to hug the shade of Lamit before it disappears.
Well, there's one last plot twist to this, because Gyot only admits this after Lamit's confession, which is Gyot is the granddaughter of the original village elder who banished Lemit to begin with.
So, in a sense of atonement, she is now leaving out Helmless to go out on her own.
Yes, and seeing the world as Lemit did.
Yes.
That one is really powerful as far as an ending goes.
Yeah.
Now,
which one I know you like Lemit's the best.
Yes.
Which would you say is the second best?
Second best is probably Dark Knight.
Dark Knight?
I like, because again, part of the storyline with that, and I kind of brushed over it, was that the Dark Knight is going through the edgy emo path.
Yeah.
And he specifically resists humanizing Brennan when he finds out about Brennan's backstory through the Pneumo who knew him during his time in Vobert. And so he actually argues with the Pneumo about why the fuck do we care about who he was. And basically the Pneumo explains that giving into hatred will only lead you down a dark path. And through seeing the echo with Brennan, you see that Brennan chose to do the opposite. He did not lose his heart to darkness.
Which then wakes up the Dark Knight to
reevaluating his position and believing that they still need to deal with Brennan, but he's not going to be as bloodthirsty as he once was.
Right. So all of the cardinal virtues had their own issues. All of them had their own lives to live. And we take those crystals and we show them to Grenold, and it inspires him to make the giant crystal.
It also gives him enough inspiration to make a whole bunch of armor sets, which is how you get your endgame armor in this game.
Yep. And while the Ondo are praying to the new glowing statue, Ardbert shows up and says, "Where did you get those crystals?"
And we basically tell him about dealing with the Sin Eaters, or the cardinal virtues, and resolving sadly we can only show him one crystal regardless of how many you have on your person.
Yes, but he basically says the same thing, that he wishes he could have gone on more adventures with them, and that he misses them dearly.
Mm-hmm. Which leads the party to being given permission to go further into the Tempest, and eventually leads us to Amaranth.
Amarat.
Oh
boy, this place. So, what did you think seeing this place in its glory?
Hello, Discount Rapture.
Discount Rapture.
So, yeah, literally, city under the ocean, bureaucratic nonsense, idealistic virtues about days gone by. Yeah, I think someone was huffing the fumes of Ken Levine when they designed this one.
Yeah, but honestly, it is such a shock. It is a beautiful place, and I love the music here.
For starters, it gives the players, or it gives the characters, technology shock, because it's revealed that we're basically coming in from the trenches into the tops of these skyscrapers, and one of them is voice activated, which is basically allows us to go in and go down to the ground floor and explore the city properly.
Only because we are going there. Because basically this whole area is a giant enchantment on a monumental scale made by Emet-Selch.
But the technology still allows us to go down as we need to.
Yes.
And so we start exploring the city, and we come across these shaded masked figures. These are giants, like easily double or triple the size of the player character model.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to talk to them. And the first thing that speaks out is, number one, they don't speak in a normal tongue.
No.
It's almost like they're telepathically speaking to you.
They're speaking in an ancient language, so ancient and yet so powerful that we somehow understand them.
Well, don't forget the echo allows us to go ahead.
Even the other players who do not have the echo can understand them.
Oh, okay. So so somehow the words that they're using are able to transcend even.
Yeah, because even though we are sundered, we can still understand the Amartine language.
Okay.
So
it's a very shocking grasp, and then it becomes also readily apparent that we're stuck in a memory of sort.
We're stuck in a memory before the final days happens. The big, catastrophic, and doomsday event that caused the ancients to summon Zodiark.
Which causes us to go run around basically the ruins of Amarat, learn about what the culture was like, what the city was like, And it's a big bureaucratic mess right now, especially because apparently the citizens of Amarat believe that the Council of 14 is going to come up with a solution at the end to save everyone.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's the convocation of 14, but it's only 13 members at the moment.
As someone has unprecedentedly stepped down.
Yes. So, it turns out we cannot get into the main building where Emet-Selch is, but we can get in through if we get the right permissions.
Which requires us to go to a bureaucratic center and get a visitor's license, assuming that first we have to go get registered and then go request the license.
And while we're waiting for the license, one of the shades comes up to us while we're suffering from light sickness and says, "Is this seat taken?" And basically starts talking to us a little bit differently than the other shades.
Yeah, we realize that it's made apparent that these are limited memories because when other Scions try to talk with them, either they get responses of "I don't know what you're talking about," or they're sort of ignored. It's indicating that the memories only remember so much or can divulge so much. This person is different.
This person was a friend to Emet-Selch because, yes, Hythlodaeus would understand this, would recognize this. So this is Hythlodaeus, an old friend of Emet-Selch's and apparently a friend of ours from the past.
This is, I think I called it. Did I call him Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of this portion?
Pretty much,
because he's basically a side character who knows he's going to die, but basically he is self-cognizant of his role in the story. His purpose is to tell you why you matter to Emet-Selch.
Pretty much,
and he basically explains that the Council of 14 was going to be the one to go ahead and try. They were in on the plan to summon Zodiark to try and save Amarat. However, a number of them disagreed with the use of Zodiark because it would basically doom everyone else. And so, thus, that contingent were the ones who first summoned Hydaelyn.
Yes, because to summon Zodiark, half of the Ancients' population was sacrificed to summon it. Then another half of that population, of the remaining population, was sacrificed to restore the world to its normal self. They were then going to sacrifice all the new life that they would give up, they would create for that world, and sacrifice it to bring back the people that were sacrificed to Zodiark.
Right. Hence what the whole genocide thing that he was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and so the Ancients were like, the other side of the Ancients were like, "Oh no, we cannot allow this. We are summoning something to bind this thing and make sure it stays put."
And so, in the long run, what Emet-Selch was trying to do was he was trying to reach out to us because he sees the image of his old friend in us and try and convince us he was right all along.
Yeah.
And trying to get us to go along with his master plan.
However, we cannot allow that to happen. We are resolved to fight against Emet-Selch. And as we are called up to get our receipt to go meet with Emet-Selch, Hythlodaeus says, "By the way, there's someone else with you, isn't there?"
And for the first time, Ardbert is actually seen by someone else.
And to which Hythlodaeus is saying, "How very cute. Back in our day, you two were one and the same."
And that is one of the few questions that I'm having going forward into Endwalker as to what the fuck does that mean?
Oh, you're going to get that answer by 5.3.
Okay, but I that is one of the lingering questions is what the fuck does that mean?
Yes. Regardless, it's basically revealed that Ardbert and the Warrior of Light and Darkness is basically, they share the same soul.
Which, now we have to talk about Benny G again, because there's the dancing bit about when the Warrior of Light meets Ardbert again.
Yes.
Yes, so it's not just a matter of the default figures looking the same. No, canonically, you two are of the same soul.
Yeah, Meteor and Ardbert are one and the same.
Yes. So we meet up with the party. We have our invitation to the ballroom dance. We talk with everyone one final time to test everyone's resolve, including Reen, who's still having reservations about being competent enough to do what she needs to.
To which you can respond a couple of ways, but my favorite way is to say, no matter what, a smile suits a hero.
Fuck. Yeah, that one hurts.
By the way, I remember seeing a comic about that line where it's a Dark Knight comic saying that line is a heavy curse upon you.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
But it's also one that you proudly bear.
Yes. But nonetheless, we go greet Emet-Selch, who's disappointed that this is how you want to go out. You want to go ahead and fight the inevitable.
Into which he goes on one of the best villain tirades I have ever heard.
It is Brennan Lee Mulligan worthy of villain monologues.
Yeah. Look at me. I have lived 1,000 of your lives. God, that is powerful.
And ultimately, we are going to go ahead and confront him. And so he says, fine, you want to go ahead and see what I've been through? He opens the doors behind him and reveals the memory of the fall of Amarat.
Yes, a giant wall of flame to which it says, behold, 'twas the end of the world and the beginning of our great work.
And that is how you end up doing that is the introduction to the Amarat raid.
The Amarat dungeon.
Amarat dungeon, sorry.
So, what did you think of this dungeon?
Oh boy, that one pulled its weight. It wasn't quite to the level of Holminster Switch, but that first boss could really give you a run, give you a run for your money.
It's more of a spectacle. You're seeing buildings that you couldn't even put a dent in, collapse around you. You are seeing the images of creations run amok, turning into monsters beyond recognition.
Also, what was the weather?
Apocalypse.
The weather actually changes to cataclysm or apocalypse.
Yeah, and so your first fight is against the first beast.
Yes, which that one actually pushed us in our group party to quite a limit because that one was not easy.
Yeah, I forgot that it drops down rocks and you need to get behind them because he does the fucking meteor thing of Behemoth.
Yes, he does. He also has some very interesting AoEs that constantly run around the barrier of the far ends of the arena, so it pushes where you can stand trying to get into behind the rock without taking additional damage.
And not to mention that the buildings to either the left or right of you will collapse, and you have to run all the way to the other side of the map.
Right. The second mini boss was interesting too. It was a absolute enemy. It was basically an enemy army.
It was basically a near endless ad phase.
It was the ad boss that ended in a DPS rush to avoid its self-destruction move going off.
Yeah, and then from there you get teleported to the best scene in the game, an image of the entire world as stars fall, and you see the cataclysm travel everywhere.
And you go ahead and confront basically Merkaba from SMT4.
Well, it's called a Chthonic Riddle, but yes.
It is the...
Chthonic Riddle Therian.
There you go. It's Therian, but it is a massive alien. I think in this case, it's not a chariot. It's like a road roller.
Yeah.
Just unleashing laser upon lasers that you have to take advantage of divots while avoiding its crushing charge attacks.
Yeah, and you also got to keep an eye out for the divots that have been cracked, because if you get onto those, they are falling down.
Right, which is insta-death. That one was fun, not nearly as much of a headache, but it's what comes afterwards that's an issue, as Emet-Selch's like, okay, clearly you're not persuaded by seeing my apocalypse. Apparently I'm just going to have to kill you outright.
To which everyone fights back against Emet-Selch, giving their reason to live, saying, this is our world, our hopes, and you will not get in the way.
Which starts with Alice getting murked first, followed by Alphino. I think then Urianger also throws in his 2 cents in there as well.
Urianger puts a barrier to keep us going while Y'shtola drops a fucking nuke, and both of them get knocked out at the same time. Thancred rushes in to attack, while he shouts at Reen to heal the Warrior of Light.
But he goes ahead, does he pull out his gun, or does he just blast her?
No, he literally just shoots a laser blast at her, which knocks her out.
He laser blasts her, knocking her out. We're about to turn, and then we enter the Harry Potter dimension.
Oh yeah, the white area, where Ardbert is right next to us, to which he says, if you could take another step, could you?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And I went, what? Without any help? Mm-hmm. To which he offers his axe to you, and he says, come, we fight as one.
And Ardbert basically
talks through us to Emet-Selch, saying, you will not stop us.
And basically wouldn't say fuses with us, but he basically lends us his soul support that allows us to suppress the ether for the confrontation, to which, holy shit, G'rahatia comes back.
Yeah, I will say this, let me tell you right now, you are fused with Ardbert. Ardbert is now within you.
Okay.
And I should also mention that when we do that, Emet-Selch sees something.
And he sees the image of his old friend, which scares the fuck out of him.
To which G'rahatia then steps up and says, Eon become instant, and brings down a bunch of summons for us as we enter the final trial. The dying gasp.
You skipped one important part.
I forgot.
Emet-Selch, I challenge you to a duel.
Come, let us remove titles and pretenses and reveal our true faces. And he is Hades.
So it is also revealed in our discussions in Amarat that Emet-Selch is a title.
Yes.
It is not his actual name, but it is much like Titania. It is a title given to the position. Things like La Habrea and all the other Ascians that we've encountered are the titles of the
convocation.
Convocation of 14. Hades is Emet-Selch's true name, and thus he will fight you as such going into the final battle.
The dying gasp, and holy shit, when you fight that, again, it does not show titles. It just says Hades when you fight him.
So it starts off with him being sort of a glorified final boss. This is,
like dark mage with a giant scepter of Zodiac made of crystal.
Yeah. Nothing out of the ordinary as far as the first phase goes.
Although One Brings Shadow is playing in the background, and god damn, that's so good.
The bigger thing is when he enters phase 2 and decides that, okay, you know what? Fuck this. I'm bringing in all the souls of which that have departed, every single instance of those who I've lost, and I'm going to hit you with everything I possibly have.
Behold a sorcerer of Eld, tremble before my glory.
And so he basically pulls off his version of the Cloud of Darkness.
Yeah.
But I would honestly say with all the faces all of the masks of fallen Ascians, it's more akin to him assuming a Yahweh form.
Kinda, yeah.
Like, have you seen SNT4 Apocalypse? The first encounter with Yahweh where he's just literally a bunch of heads?
Yes, I have seen that. I am seeing that, and I completely agree with you. And I'm also telling you, Hades, the role of Emet-Selch in the Convocation of 14 is to watch over the underworld, the ethereal sea. That is why and how he could rescue Y'shtola from the life stream. Mm-hmm. Because that is his job as the member of the Convocation.
Also, I believe you and I discussed, there's a lot of Greek-Roman symbolism within Amarat.
Oh yeah, everything's Greek. It's all Greek.
So Hades, and I asked you, I think we both said no, but basically, it isn't as heavy-handed as it's going to be from this point on. Like, this is the most heavy-handed the Greek references get.
For the most part.
I wish they had done more with that, because I think that is one of the few, like, having fantasy ancient Rome is not something that gets done very often.
Well, actually, something comes up in Endwalker, but I won't say what.
That we'll deal with later. But ultimately, we tried to put him away, but ultimately, the fact of the matter is, he is a being of pure dark. He is not going down easy. And so, in the darkness, in the shadow of nothingness, our friends come back and strike with these various shards of
white
orosite to basically try and hold Hades down so we can finish him. We channel every ounce of light aspected ether that we've absorbed throughout the adventures and channel it into one axe.
to which we throw at Emet-Selch and blast a hole right through him.
We destroy his illusion of darkness and bring us back to reality as we're standing in
literally the ruins of what remained of Amarat.
The actual Amarat, what remains of it now. And Emet-Selch is just standing there looking at us.
And says, remember us. Remember that we once lived. We nod, and as he dissipates, he smiles.
Fade to black.
Pretty much.
And
except we gotta walk, get our way back to the shore.
Right. But the good news is that in basically channeling that massive light strike into Hades, we basically purged ourselves of all the excess light that was building up in us.
Hades was literally the darkness to our light, and we basically canceled each other out.
Yes. So our aura returns to normal. We're not going to turn into a Sin Eater anymore. And now we basically come back to the surface, swimming the whole way back up.
Poor Alphino.
Poor Alphino and poor Urianger.
Yeah. They're both dead.
But credits roll as we're on the shores of Calusia, and we make our way back to the Crystal Tower. But first, we have to go back to the source.
Yeah, we have to go to the source to tell them how things are going.
No.
Oh, right.
The cutscene.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. In between all of this, there has been some political stuff going on with the Garleans.
So, the biggest thing is that, as we discussed in the last time, basically, we know that in the body of Xenos is the
Ascian Elidibus.
The Ascian Elidibus, who's basically been messing with the current emperor.
Yes.
And basically, they're continuing the facade and going through with the Black Rose project. Meanwhile, Gaius and Estinian have been slowly creeping their way into Garlean proper and making their way into the castle to try and stop the project from within.
In comes a lone Garlean soldier who is acting a little bit funny
and has been slaughtering his way bit by bit back to the capital, trying to get to Xenos as quickly as possible because he is Xenos.
Yes. Elidibus sees it is Xenos and freaks the fuck out.
And as Gaius and Estinian are rushing into the throne room because the sounds of a battle occurred, we find out that Elidibus pieced out of Xenos' body.
But before telling him everything.
Told him everything, pieced out of his body. Xenos jumped back into his own body.
And proceeded to stab his father in the stomach.
Et tu, Brute?
Yeah, tu, Brute.
And basically, as Gaius is conflicted between his duties as a noble son of Garlemald and wanting to go ahead and murder probably one of the more incompetent emperors he's ever had to serve.
Yeah.
Xenos is like, look, I could care less about
your petty war.
Your petty war. I don't give a fuck about Black Rose. Where is my battle boyfriend?
Pretty much. He's basically saying, I won't allow you to use Black Rose to ruin my chance at a glorious fight with my friend.
So, and it's at least hinted that he kills his father there?
Oh yeah, he's dead.
Okay. And so
Varus Galvis is dead.
And so Gaius and Estinian, basically having accomplished their mission, get the fuck out.
Well, basically, Gaius immediately tries to attack Xenos, but we then cut to black.
Okay. We cut to black. We come back to the Crystal Tower, and we have a discussion where basically the Crystal Darksheart reveals, so about sending you back.
Basically, my plan was to die in the void because once I die, this magic holding you here was supposed to wear off.
I can only send him back, the Warrior of Light, back.
Because there is a way for him to go back.
But the rest of you, we're going to have to figure something else out.
To which...
But basically everyone's like, well, between our own obligations within the first and wanting to go ahead and get some things wrapped up, we're cool with that for now.
Yeah. By the way, we kind of skipped over my favorite scene before the credits of Shadowbringers ends, where a little kid who reminds you of Ardbert asks, "How did you get so strong?" You smile and put your finger to your lips, saying, "It's a secret."
Oh yes. So we're allowed to go back to the source. We basically tell
Tataru
that everything's going to be all right. And before we end, we get one more cutscene of the remaining Ascian left standing on the moon. Okay, so they decided to become the Warriors of Darkness. This works just fine for me.
They will be ended by the hand of a warrior of light. And cut to that, we then get another cutscene of Thancred and Reen out in the middle of the empty because Reen senses something out there. And that is the lead up to the Eden raids, which we technically have done a little bit of. We're not going to talk about it here.
Yeah, we're going to save that for the next leg of our journey. Also, in lead up to this podcast, about this time last year, I was wrapping up Heaven's Word.
Yeah, pretty much. You've made quite a bit of progress.
So probably at least by this time next year, I would anticipate being at Dawntrail.
I think we'll have you at Dawntrail, or at the very least, we might get you to the current patch.
Which will be impressive.
And from then on, our podcast is just going to basically be patch content.
Patch content. Maybe I'll go over additional stuff because I am doing an alt where I'm messing around with other details. So even though you can do all the content of 14 on one character, there's no restrictions outside of if you want to try on certain armors, you just need to get a Fantasia for that.
Yeah.
But I like building characters because I'm that kind of nutter.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I've messed around in the character creator and made a few things of my own. I've tried to make what basically would be my main character's mother, even.
Mm-hmm. A couple of things that change at this point. The trust system comes up.
The trust system has now fully been implemented, so...
So the other thing that comes up is after Shadowbringers, all of the role quests that you have done up to this point get a capstone.
Yes.
Which basically wraps up every individual job quest storyline at this point. You've already discussed White Mages.
Yes, I discussed White Mages. So why don't we go ahead and discuss the ones that you've done?
So I've only done... I have technically had 6 jobs leveled, but I've only done 4 of them because those are the only 4 I leveled up to 80, which are in this case are Astrologian, Monk, Red Mage, and Dark Knight.
Yes.
And I would like to go through them in that order.
Okay.
So, just as a quick summary, I'm going to briefly explain just the build-up for what the story arcs of each of the jobs are, just as a quick refresher.
Okay.
So, Astrologian, you go under the tutelage of Leveva, who is basically a prodigy astrologian after her grandfather passes away due to shenanigans. She faked her own death to avoid being caught by the Inquisitors of Charlian to avoid having to go back, as she's technically illegally spreading the practice of astrology.
Okay.
She meets a geomancer by the name of Kiyohaku, I think, from Kugane, and basically they exchange notes because geomancy and astrologianism are basically two halves of the same coin. And they basically are trying to find a way to merge the two arts together into a grand singular art.
Okay.
And at the same time, there's also one of Levava's other students who's initially supposed to be our colleague, but he's more just her incompetent helper. And so Levava has been in conflicts of late as she's been isolating herself and trying to find something out, but she's had a conflict, and she had a vision of darkness that came up earlier. And so that's been causing her concern. Enter Kohaku, who comes to Ishgard for very personal reasons, as he wants to go ahead and declare his love for Levava.
Oh, God.
To which the assistant's like, "You can't do that, that's my job." And so basically we go out and go check on Levava and ask her, "So what's been going on?" And she's like, "Well, I've been trying to go ahead and find out how to merge the two arts together, but I can't make it work." To which she sees the two bumbling love-struck fools and says, "Oh, you don't know? I'm already married."
What?
To which breaks both their hearts. She wanders off, doesn't explain further, and basically we go track her down, and she again reiterates what's been bothering her, and she explains that she had a vision of us going through a sea of darkness. To which she basically asks, "What have you been up to?" And we tell her everything that's been going on in Shadowbringers. So she's like, "Oh, so that's why you're so much stronger now."
Yeah.
And so she continues. She's a bit more satisfied with your progress, agrees to return back to Ishgard, and then when the two of them talk to her again, it's like, "Well, wait a second. You're dead. You're dead technically, right? So you aren't married to anyone anymore." To which she says, "That's not true," and she points between the two of them at a globe and says, "I'm married to astrology." It's by far probably the funniest of the capstone quest that I've done.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So once again, the two boys are left to their sadness, but Leveva's happy with herself, continuing her own studies.
All right.
We go to the monk quest line. Let's go with the monk quest line next.
Okay.
So the monk quest line involves you meeting a monk from the exiled kingdom of Garabania, which is basically where there's basically a forced excursion of people called Alamegans to come over in various parts of the Eorzean continent. It kind of relates to a similar. Think of the Jewish diaspora for a historical reference.
Yeah, this was all explained in Stormblood.
Right. Anyway, he has been around since Realm Reborn, trying to rebuild his the monk. I forget what his name is. It's like, anyway, the monk that we were working with, he was originally trying to rebuild his order. Met a pair of Makote sisters who were part of the Shadow Order. That he was from the Light Order, so they merged together to create a Grand Singular Order. It's revealed that he is actually the descendant of the Mad King of
Alamigo.
Alva Alamigo, who basically was the former ruler until the Garleans showed up, and that carries a lot of negative baggage.
Oh boy.
To which he still feels shame because he had to put down his blood brother, who basically wanted to try and reinstitute the monarchy against the will of the people. And so he still has some reservations about the revelation that he is blood with the Mad King. We return to the village that he's from, finding out that the monk tradition has flourished. Lots of people are taking up the art of the fist again, and we find out that he buried his old companion, and basically his old companion didn't die, but basically ran out of the infirmary. And basically his armor and weapon have been left as a memorial to him because he's basically dead regardless. The man they once knew was dead. Let me put it that way. The monk is trying to figure out what he wants to do with himself when he gets a message from a resistance soldier who wants him to go ahead and speak with the commander.
Okay.
And it's revealed that basically Lys, who is now the commander of the resistance, or now the general of the military, wants the monk to train her men in close quarters combat. To which he feels that he once tried to build his sect for that sole purpose, but realizing that he was going about it in the wrong way, and basically, in his eyes, being no better than his men who wanted to his brother who wanted to reinstitute the monarchy, abstains from doing so as a member of the resistance, but agrees to do so as a favor to Lys herself.
Oh, that's good. Maybe she'll actually graduate from being a fucking pugilist.
They go ahead and walk up the pathway up to the Fist of Hrothgar Temple, and the two of them basically agree to have a duel just to go ahead and see whether or not he can actually back up his words. And so the two of them have a big fight before we go ahead and we conclude that end stone.
All right, that's nice. So, Red Mage next.
Red Mage basically follows Zarun Tia, who is a wandering Makote Red Mage. We assist rescuing an orphan girl named Arya, who basically was similar to Tainer in the Shadowbringers, was basically the result of an eugenics cult to try and bring about someone, a skilled enough mage for the purpose of bonding with Voidsent, to basically create the ultimate Red Mage. As Red Mages infused with Voidsent blood basically had preternatural control over ether, both white and black. which is required in order to do Red Mage arts. Anya had previously purged herself of her connection to her Void Sent blood, but in doing so lost her ability to do red magic and basically had to relearn the magic all over again.
I see.
She has been slow making progress, but Zaruntia comes back and basically says, hey, I need help because there's a bunch of bandits breaking into Red Mage tombs and stealing shit. Come help me deal with them.
All right.
We do so. One of the treasures that was stolen from the crypt was a sword belonging to Zaruntia's friend, who the one who went rogue and caused a lot of the problems to begin with. He apparently had a sword, or one of his other brothers, this is. This blood brother had a sword that was specifically tuned to deal with, for a user with a low pool of ether, which perfectly suits Anya because she no longer has her Void Sent blood to power her. And so Zaruntia gifts it to her as basically she had proven herself through dealing with the grave robbers that she has the skills again to relearn Red Mage. And so they reaffirm the oath, and she begins her training again to relearn Red Mage while he continues gallivanting across the land.
That's good. That's nice.
And so the last one, Black Dark Knight, which you have already done.
This one I have done. This one is a personal favorite of mine. So
we return back to the Forgotten Knight, the inn in Ishgard.
And meet with Sidurgu.
Sidurgu and Riel. Sidurgu is... So the Dark Knight path starts off with us finding a dead body who we believe to be belonging to a guy known as Freyr Mist. He turns out to be an illusion of our dark selves as we wanted to learn the Dark Knight path, which basically involves seeking justice in one's own heart, and the stone resonant within us basically created Freyr as a mentor figure to us to unlock our hidden resolve.
But it turns out there was no Frey next to us. It was always us. So people who were seeing us act unusually harsh... people who were seeing Frey act unusually harsh were actually seeing us being harsh.
Yes. And we find out that Frey did actually exist. He just already is dead. And his blood brother, Sidurgu, came to go ahead and find out what had happened to his brother. He helps us as we find out that in Ishgard, there are still orphans being abducted by the church for various misgivings.
To which we meet Riel.
Riel, who is being accosted. She has a large amount of ether a large amount of potential within her for magics, but it's unclear why she is so powerful.
It's later revealed that she basically has dragon blood within her.
Because her mother, who was a priestess within the clergy, basically conducted blood rituals in order to try and create Riel as...
Well, it wasn't the wife. It was the husband who infused her with dragon blood, to which the wife went crazy and tried to have her daughter entombed and then eventually killed.
Right. Which leads us to go ahead and kill said penitent mother. Sidurgu goes ahead and we go ahead and go through that instance. The Stormblood DLC doesn't have too much to add other than we go on journey of self-reflection, dealing with people's grief, and also finding out along the way that Sidurgu basically has grief of his own for failing his father figure, who was the Dark Knight who trained both him and Frey.
Yes. The reason why we're doing this is because our Dark Knight crystal broke, and a figure known as Mist, who looks a lot like a combination between
two of our dead friends,
Horshaphant and fuck, I forgot her name.
The Shiva avatar.
I know, Shiva. Emet-Selch
basically wanders about and is trying to make people happy by bringing back phantoms of people whom they lost.
Yes.
And in doing so, one of the things that is sort of revealed is that it's not really edginess and vengeance that powers a Dark Knight, but love.
Yes.
To which Sidurgu vehemently denies, despite him having shown a lot of seemingly paternal affection for Riel, although Riel's dialogue suggests it's different.
Yeah. It seems like Riel has the hots for Sidurgu.
I'm dancing around it because they're using a younger figure for Riel.
I know, but yet again, Elzins go through growth spurts, so...
Go through growth spurts. The age equivalency is not the same. Plus, you can still argue that she has just the typical adolescent crush on brooding emo dark boy.
Yeah, which is typical.
Which is fitting.
But anyway, we end up meeting with Sidurgu after everything in Shadowbringers, and we kind of tell him what we had been through. To which he says, "Oh, by the way, there's a letter for you. We don't know where it came from, but well, we know someone who delivered it to us.
We know who delivered it to you, but the letter itself is unsigned.
Yes.
Basically, opening the letter reveals, "Thank you for helping me in the past, made me realize what truly mattered," but the letter is left unsigned. We go ahead and start tracing it backwards, and we come across different figures along the way, from the first girl we saved when we were testing out our Dark Knight powers, to someone we ran into while we were going ahead and we were helping them deal with their lost loved one in Alamigo, going back even as far as to assisting Gunderbald, who was one of the Alamigo refugees at the very start of A Realm Reborn.
To then, it leads us back to the person that we finally snapped at, saying Leviathan should have just drowned you all. The merchant that we had basically bloodied up his merchandise,
and he wanted full refund. We find that merchant now as a flower tender out in the fields in Limsa, not Limsa Lominsa.
Yeah, in Lenosha.
In where?
Lenosha. It is in Limsa Lominsa,
okay.
but Lenosha.
Lenosha, who basically explains, "Look, I'm sorry for yelling at you like that. I realized I was at my lowest point because I was an idiot and made a couple of bad financial moves, and the only thing I had to my name was these freaking flowers. And so I ended up planting them, and now I've sort of bounced back as a flower merchant." And he gives you one such flower, but he cautions, like, it's kind of difficult to warn these. These only really thrive well in cold climates.
Yeah, and they're usually used to mourn the dead.
Which makes us think back to where it all began. And so we take a quick trip
to Kurthus.
To Kurthus and go look at go sit on the overlook where we confronted our shadow back at in the I'm trying to remember the name of the encampment.
I know what you're talking about, but it was the encampment nearby Camp Dragonhead.
Yes.
But we stand there, we hold our sword up, and behind us is our other self.
Is our shadow, who comes up and asks, "So, do you still need me after all?"
Probably. But yeah.
Well, whenever you need to call on me,
I'll be there.
I'll be there. It's no longer I anymore, it's us.
And we gotta stick through it to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so, God, I fucking love the Dark Knight quest line.
It is really well written.
God, that is... How do I say this?
You got the time.
I know I got the time, but we're at 3.5 hours.
If I had to go ahead and give... To try and, I guess, summarize what I think we're both feeling about this, it's very rare in a JRPG, especially in an MMO, where really you get the insight into what the protagonist character is thinking, and the Dark Knight questline addresses not just that, but also the burden and the feelings of self-sacrifice and what that takes on a person.
Yeah.
And Dark Knight allows for a venting of that, but ultimately an acknowledgement to love oneself.
Yeah, honestly, you put it in words that I couldn't even describe. I am so bad at putting my thoughts into words, but you're really good at that, dude. You're really good at that.
And you're really good at doing the art, which, by the way, we have new figures up because not only did I get healer done for you, but you also changed your outfit too.
Yeah, I was thinking about making myself a Dark Knight for this, but no, I had to show off my healer glam, which is just basically scrubs.
No, but it's a very nice look for you, so in the end, it worked out anyway.
Yeah. So there is one other thing that we could talk about, which is the capstone to the role quest. But I think we should save that for the next episode.
I think that's perfectly fine.
Because it doesn't really fully complete until you beat 5.3.
Right. And I think that's a fair I think that's a fair way because the way that it ends halfway isn't as satisfactory as I imagine the full ending is.
Yes.
So what are we doing the next time? Because we have a lot to go through.
Okay, so the thing is, you can't finish the Eden raids until you finish patch 5.3.
So remind me, and the full because we're gonna do.
We have done the first wing of Eden and half of the second wing of Eden.
No. I want to take the full view before we talk about.
Okay, so we've got patches 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. We've got the Eden raids, we got the Shadow of Warlet raids, and we got the Near raids.
Let me ask: does 5.3 lead into Endwalker, or do we still have patch quests going through that?
Patches 5.4 and 5.5 lead into Endwalker.
Okay.
Patch 5.3 ends Shadowbringers.
Okay. What I would suggest then, because the way that we're going through Eden, that's fairly quick. The only thing that's going to take us at this point is going to be doing the weapon trials.
And the Near raid.
And then 2 additional dungeons, which we are doing because those have to be done.
Yeah, well, at least one of them has to be done, the twinning.
Right.
You can possibly skip Academia Niter. Surprisingly, I never ran that dungeon until last week.
Okay, I still want to at least do it just because it's there.
So we've got those 2 dungeons. We've got the Eden raid, and we got 5.1 to 5.3. I think that's a good enough, as well as the capstone to the world quest.
I would say let's try, because that list we could probably get done reasonably in 2 months.
Yeah,
and so I think we might as well just include 5.4 and 5.5 as well, because we do not have Hildebrand this patch.
No, we don't have Hildebrand. So you want to do everything for the next video?
I think everything for the next video. Again, we are past 3.5 hours. It is not going to take us 3.5 hours to go through all that content.
Probably not, but we might end up doing that.
Why don't we do this?
Let's see where we are when we finish 5.3.
Sure. I was also going to say, because we can't finish Eden until after 5.3, we can kick Eden into a second podcast with 5.4 and 5.5.
Okay.
And then kick, I would say let's kick...
Well, if that's the case, then we can do the weapon trials because there's only 3.
Do the weapon trials, do the Near raids, and then kick whatever else is to the next chapter, and then we'll do 5.1 to 5.3.
Okay, then what we'll do is for patch 5.1 to 5.3, we will do weapon trials, Near. We will do the Shadowbringers Roll Quest Capstone.
Yes.
Because, well, actually, no. You got to save that till after 5.3.
Yeah, after that goes into after 5.3.
Okay, so just weapons, Near, up to 5.3.
Yes. And then we'll finish up, and then we'll do Eden, Roll Quest, 5.4 and 5.5. And then I actually am doing at least some of the Crafter quest lines. So we can save that for that there as well.
Okay, that works. So
obviously it's going to be a bit of a shorter turnaround, at least if we keep up the consistent pace that we've been at.
Yeah, we try to do at least 1 hangout a week, maybe 2 if possible.
Which gets us at least a good enough grind tempo to go ahead and actually get a fair bit done. So that will probably be a short turnaround. The only thing that's going to be limiting us at this point is how much time I spend on glam.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough, because you're getting to endgame, which means more glam is available.
Yes. And there's actually some old glams that I missed that I'm kind of reconsidering. I have one question, though.
Yeah?
Why did they not update the amount of medals you get from hunt quests?
I don't know. Well, to be honest, from Shadowbringers, Endwalker, and Dawntrail all use their own unique currency for the hunt quests.
I know. So does
Heaven's Ward.
Heaven's Ward and Stormblood use the same. But then even freaking ARR has its own hunt material.
Oh, if you want to get more Alliance medals for that, do Blue Mage.
I had looked back at that, and I feel like this is going to be a waste of time. And now I'm looking at it like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, I will go ahead.
There are weekly rewards for it.
Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
One last thing before we call it a day. Do you remember you remember how I had brought up to you at one point about the Delivery Moogle quest line?
Yeah.
Do you know what that actually gives you, aside from the one quest item that I told you I would do it for?
You mean... what was it?
It gives you the backstories for NPCs from ARR.
Really?
Yes, so I started doing that one, and the first 3 quests are learn the backstory for Bateron, learn the backstory for Vermodi, and learn the backstory of Mother Miome.
Oh, really?
Who are the barkeepers in the main 3 areas
nice.
of ARR. So it seems like that quest line's going to basically be like, okay, we kind of talked about these characters as having some history. Let's actually explore that.
Huh, that's interesting.
So I will...
It's a shame that you can't wear the hat, though.
Oh.
Or are you talking about the Star-Spangled Subligar?
The Star-Spangled Subligar.
Oh, god damn it.
I need my beachwear at some point.
Get the fucking curl beachwear.
Nah, that's too gaudy.
Are you kidding? I look fabulous in it.
Well then, I guess we know what our next art is going to be for the next podcast.
God, no. That's not safe for work. This is on YouTube.
Okay, then we're gonna have to take this to Patreon. Anyway, this is Leo Force.
This is Ray signing out. Later, guys, and have a good day.
Ciao.